Chapter 1977. The ThunderClan leader stared at the body of the gigantic beast. He stepped out with the clear sky divine hammer in his hand. He wanted to see how strong the physical body of this gigantic beast was exactly. In the surroundings of the clear sky divine hammer, numerous black cracks appeared. This power was even more terrifying compared to before. Clearly, this was an extremely powerful Tao of destruction. Be careful. Jun Mingchen reminded Little Rascal. Little Rascal let out a low-sounding roar, "Leave him to me." As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying devouring vortex appeared in the air. The gigantic beast soared up into the starry space. The ThunderClan leader chased after it with his clear sky divine hammer in his hand. One man, one beast, they were about to fight in the starry space. At this moment, a terrifying divine formation appeared in the starry space. Divine punishment light flashed, like the energy of doomsday. Qin Zheng stepped out as the judgment halberd appeared in his hand. This was the divine weapon used by his father Qin Ding in the past. However, Qin Ding was exiled to the chaotic void by Qin Tiangang and had long vanished without a trace. The judgment halberd was refined by Qin Zheng, and he had already fused the power of his ancestor with his body. He was now even stronger compared to him back then when he fought in the Qin clan. Luo Shenchuan stared at Qin Zheng with a cold expression. The heavenly might radiating from the judgment halberd caused one's heart to palpitate. The Qin Zheng now was even more difficult to deal with. Jun Mingchen stared at Qin Zheng with a cold gaze. Just when he wanted to step out, an extremely beautiful figure appeared before him. Jun Mingchen had never seen this woman before, but according to the news the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect sent to the Heaven Vault, he knew who this woman was. She was none other than that mysterious woman who helped the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. The disciples of the Divine Mausoleum guessed that she might have a connection with their senior brother Qin. Qin Kursen's beautiful eyes stared at Qin Zheng. Her gaze was extremely cold, flickering with killing intent, causing Qin Zheng to frown. What relationship did this woman have with the Heaven Vault exactly? Who in the Divine Mausoleum had a connection with Qin Wenin? Why would she show killing intent towards him? Are you acquainted with him? Qin Zheng suddenly asked Qin Kursen. Only he knew where his son went. It was none other than the Divine Mausoleum in the supreme ancient immortal realms. If this woman came out from the Divine Mausoleum, she might have seen his son before. Qin Kursen's expression was as cold as ever. She couldn't be bothered to care about him. A desolate aura permeated the air, slowly enveloping Qin Zheng. Very soon, Qin Zheng discovered that he had appeared in another spatial world. Before him was a divine mausoleum. It was deathly silent and heavy. It was very hard to imagine that this was the power unleashed by a supreme beauty. He had no idea how she cultivated exactly. On the other side, the eyes of Jun Mingchen flashed. He found the Che clan leader and stepped out, arriving before him. This Che clan leader wielded a scepter in his hand and exuded a terrifying might. He was extremely dangerous. Luo Shenchuan also arrived before the prison god clan leader. The 5 demon sovereigns of the Demon God Mountain and Sword Monarch Jian Junlai respectively searched for their own opponents. They first targeted the strongest experts from the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms. These people were too dangerous. As for those heavenly deities, they would leave them to the newly ascended heavenly deities of the Heaven Vault. From what they knew, the current Princess Kitamura was already extremely powerful. In addition, the Tao she comprehended was very suitable for group battles. The hegemonic powers of the various hegemonic powers all found their own opponents. However, the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms clearly had more heavenly deities. They had an absolute advantage. Although the Heaven Vault had developed rapidly during these years, it was impossible for them to contend against so many hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Even if the deities from the Tiandao Sacred Academy joined forces with the Heaven Vault, it was still insufficient. If the Chenkuan sect and 9 Heavens Mystical Palace were still allies with the Heaven Vault, they might be able to fight on equal grounds. Those powerful heavenly deities walked towards the Heaven Vault's heavenly deities. Qin, Princess Kitamura, the Southern Phoenix matriarch, These beautiful heavenly deities all caused their hearts to pound with excitement. However, today, it was inevitable that they would have to destroy these flowers. Do it. A heavenly deity from the Qin clan coldly spoke. Back then during the war against the Qin clan suffered the most losses. Now they finally had the chance to take revenge. These women were all Qin Wentian's family, right? If they captured them, if Qin Wentian was still alive, how would he feel? Princess Kitamura closed her eyes. She stood in the starry space and released her powerful soul energy, enveloping this entire space. At this moment, the souls of all heavenly deities transformed into motes of light that appeared in her mind. However, she wasn't in a hurry to invade them. Instead, she sensed that many powerful divine souls were getting closer. They were none other than those heavenly deities who were attacking her. In the surroundings of Princess Kitamura, by Qin, the Southern Phoenix matriarch, Bujie, Qiyu and the other heavenly deities stood in different directions, with Princess Kitamura as the center, protecting her. They understood some of Princess Kitamura's abilities. By protecting her, they would be able to influence the entire battle situation. Kill! Finally, a heavenly deity took the lead to make a move. The heavenly Tao descended, and the entire sky transformed into a world of raging flames. The Tao of incineration could burn everything into ashes. The dark red flames emitted a deep and terrifying darkness. Even in the void, everything would be ignited and turned into nothingness. In Bai Mingyuang's mind, the pearl spun rapidly, radiating a dazzling seven-colored light that amplified her soul energy. After that, a fearsome soul energy erupted forth. In an instant, those heavenly deities who were preparing to act all felt their bodies trembling from the coldness. Although they were in the world of flames, they could still feel a bone-chilling coldness. This was a coldness that originated from the depths of one's soul. Soul freeze. Princess Kitamura closed her eyes and stood in the starry space. Her red lips spat out a few words. This was none other than the power of her Tao. Her Tao was the Tao of souls. It could directly attack the souls of others. At the instant the sound of her voice faded, many people were covered in a layer of frost. Their bodies stiffened as though their lives were about to stop. If their souls were frozen, how could they still be alive? The heavenly deities were so cold that their bodies were trembling. Their lips emitted white steam as frost covered their bodies. At this moment, they basically didn't seem like heavenly deities. They were no different from ordinary people. They would fear the cold. At the instant Princess Kitamura released her soul attack Tao art, the heavenly deities who were protecting her already moved. How fast were the reactions of heavenly deities? Such an opportunity was fleeting. How could they miss it? Qing Er's speed was extremely fast. In the past, she was already proficient in spatial energy. Right now, the heavenly Tao she comprehended was also related to spatial energy. At the instant her silhouette flashed, she directly passed by a heavenly deity who was at the forefront of the group. When she passed by, her white hair fluttered in the wind as golden threads of light shone resplendently. That heavenly deity's eyes flashed with a look of despair and terror as an expression of extreme agony appeared on his face. In the next instant, his body that was covered in frost directly disintegrated, transforming into nothingness, vanishing from this world just like that. Qing didn't even pause for a moment. Her body was like a bolt of golden lightning that moved through the starry space, moving towards her next target. It was unknown whether Qin Wentian was dead or alive. From this, one could very well imagine how strong the killing intent in her heart was. The white-haired god of slaughter was now a true heavenly deity. Chi-chi, an ear-piercing sound of collision rang out. When Qing attacked the second heavenly deity, that heavenly deity forcibly endured the damage to his soul and recovered. A spatial shrine appeared around him, transforming into the power of absolute space, blocking the corrosive power of the external world. But when Qing Er's silhouette streaked past, the spatial shrine was actually torn apart bit by bit, dissipating into nothingness. That heavenly deity instantly retreated. Since he had the Tao of space, his movement was akin to instant teleportation, completing his retreat in an instant. Ching-er didn't give chase. An extremely thin spatial sword appeared in her hand, and she slashed it through the air. In an instant, a thin spatial line traversed through the void, chasing after the other party. It arrived at the place where the other party had retreated, slicing the space in half as if it wanted to split the starry sky into two. The expression of that heavenly deity turned ashen. His palms blasted outwards as a terrifying spatial divine formation manifested, transforming into an absolute spatial barrier that blocked before him. But when the spatial thread streaked past, the barrier was directly slashed apart. Ching-er's Tao of space seemed to be able to slash apart all space. There was nothing that could block it. That heavenly deity screamed in pain. His palms were torn apart, but he instantly teleported away, allowing him to escape. His entire body was drenched in cold sweat. In that short instant, he felt as though he had just taken a stroll in front of the gates of hell. What caused him to be even more shocked was that his opponent didn't stop at all. She directly teleported over with a speed even faster than lightning. At this moment, that heavenly deity no longer had the mood to admire the beauty of his opponent. This white-haired beauty before him was a god of slaughter. Gotcha! That heavenly deity's soul suffered another attack. His entire body was covered in frost as his movements slowed for a moment. The white-haired killing god sword arrived. There was basically no way for him to evade. An absolute spatial light screen appeared around him, enveloping him within. He wanted to enter an absolute safe space. His body also seemed to vanish from the starry space. Ching-er's sword directly pierced into the void. It felt like she didn't hit her target. However, the Tao intent from her sword permeated the void. After that, a terrifying spatial killing energy enveloped the entire space, causing that heavenly deity to feel despair. As a heavenly deity, he had followed the army of deities to kill their way into the heaven vault. Was he going to die here? Was this the beginning of their end? Or was it the end? Kill! A cold and melodious voice rang out from Ching-er's mouth. As the sound of the word, kill, rang out, that heavenly deity in the void felt a force that could slice apart his life. It felt like there was a formless Tao ravaging his body. His eyes were wide open, filled with pain and despair. The spatial Tao art his opponent comprehended was a true Tao of slaughter. It was even more terrifying compared to his Tao, able to slice apart life directly. No! That heavenly deity roared in rage. His body was directly torn apart, transforming into nothingness. Even though he hid in the void, he still died. Chapter 1978. Ching-er instantly retreated after her attack succeeded, not allowing herself to be trapped in the enemy's camp. Although she instantly killed 2 heavenly deities, she was still as calm as ever. The enemy had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. If they wanted to deal with this battle, they could only rely on Princess Kitamura's ability to restrict them. Only then would they be able to kill the heavenly deities one by one. The various heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms naturally also realized this point. When they were enduring Princess Kitamura's attacks, all of them were struck by a soul-freezing attack. This was a soul-freezing energy that was extremely terrifying. She relied on her own strength to simultaneously target all the heavenly deities. Such a method was simply too terrifying. Her soul energy was simply heaven-defying. If a single heavenly deity were to face her alone, the consequences would be unimaginable. Naturally, although Bai Mingyowang's soul was strong, it wasn't at such a level yet. She could launch a soul attack against all the heavenly deities at the same time. She was still using the treasure given to her by the old freak. That mysterious soul pearl was rumored to be a soul-type divine treasure used by the imperishable Heaven Lord before. It could amplify her soul energy, allowing her to sense the location of all the heavenly deities at the same time and directly launch an attack. Kill her first. The heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms moved towards Princess Kitamura. That cold beauty who had her eyes closed in the starry space had to be eliminated first. If not, they would all be suppressed. Also, her group attacks were already so powerful. If Princess Kitamura chose to attack a single person later on, she would definitely die. Thunder God slash. An expert from the Thunder clan coldly snorted. His eyes that were still covered in frost flashed with a terrifying killing intent. His eyes seemed to be one with the lightning in the starry space. Numerous bolts of lightning transformed into terrifying Thunder God swords that appeared above Princess Kitamura's head, wanting to tear everything apart. God devouring! At the same time, an extremely terrifying and formless poisonous gas was released, turning into the power of Taoist magic. In the space where Princess Kitamura was, all life was corroded and destroyed. With a thunderous boom, the figure of Chiyu from the Battle Saint tribe appeared. He transformed into a giant and stood in front of Princess Kitamura. Behind him, an even larger divine ape appeared, staring down at everything with disdain. It was like a king of space beasts, and with a single roar, even the constellations in the sky trembled. Beams of astral light cascaded downwards, transforming into a terrifying golden divine formation that appeared behind Chiyu. The people fighting in this starry space were all the relatives of the Saint Lord. Among these women, some were the wives of the Saint Lord, some were his younger sisters. Not a single one of them could be harmed. Now that the Saint Lord wasn't here, he naturally had to protect them with his life. His saint bone erupted as his battle saint might was unleashed to the extreme. He formed seals with his hands and directly unleashed the battle saint art. In the starry space, the great Tao energy of the heavens was all under his control, constantly evolving the battle Tao. In the starry space, a gigantic battle character appeared. Each battle character contained a heaven-shaking battle might, suppressing the entire space. Once, when he obtained the Saint Bone and broke through to the heavenly deity realm, he followed Saint Lord Qin Wenian to the Divine Ox Clan and defeated the heavenly deity of the Divine Ox Clan. Now, several hundred years have passed. Under the constant nourishment of the battle Saint Bone, his talent was unearthed and his strength was many times stronger compared to the past. Scram! An incomparably gigantic battle character flew towards the Thunder God sword that was slashing down. At the same time, numerous battle characters enveloped Princess Kitamura, transforming into a screen of battle character. The Battle Saint art could be used for both offense and defense. The offensive power directly shattered the Thunder God sword, and the defensive power caused the corrosive energy to have no way to invade. However, the screen of battle character was still being corroded bit by bit. If this continued on, it would eventually dissipate. From this, one could see how terrifying the God Extermination Palace's poison Tao was. If this energy directly affected a human, even a heavenly deity would be corroded into ashes. Chi-Chi! A divine weapon stabbed into the screen of battle character, actually frenziedly devouring the energy within it. That divine weapon itself contained the power of the Tao and was a divine weapon created by the Che clan. This heavenly deity was none other than the Che clan's heavenly deity. A beam of blood-colored light slashed towards the Che clan's heavenly deity. He retreated, and after that, the entire world instantly transformed into a world of blood. A figure stood in front of him. It was a woman who was extremely beautiful. But right now, her beauty was extremely demonic. Even her beautiful eyes had turned the color of blood. Blood-colored light revolved around her, containing a terrifying judgment energy. The entire world was filled with boundless blood-colored light. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind. She resembled a female devil god. However, not long ago when everyone saw her, she still had the appearance of a cold maiden, exuding a pure beauty. But now that she was in combat, she instantly transformed. This female heavenly deity was none other than the judiciary priestess by Qin. Even her eyes were blood-colored, radiating a terrifying killing intent. Right now, it was unknown if her Wenian Gidge was alive or something must have happened to him. If not, the heaven vault wouldn't have opened. If something happened to her Wenian Gidge, the heavenly deities of the various powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms were all murderers. She wouldn't spare any of them. Boundless blood-colored light shot towards the heavenly deity from the Che clan. The Che clan's heavenly deity stabbed out with his divine weapon. A terrifying vortex appeared around the divine weapon, devouring the blood-colored light. In the next instant, Bai Qing arrived, she directly rushed towards the heavenly deity from the Che clan. Courting death. The Che clan's heavenly deity stabbed out with a speed as fast as lightning. With a piercing sound, the light from the divine weapon penetrated through Bai Qing's body. This scene caused the heavenly deity from the Che clan to be stunned. Was there really such a weak heavenly deity? This female was like she was sending herself to death, directly sending her body into the divine weapon. His eyes were cold. The divine weapon radiated a terrifying Dao might, devouring Bai Qing's flesh and blood. Do you know pain? At this moment, that beautiful female devil suddenly spoke. Her voice was filled with the intent of cursing. If you don't experience it, you won't understand. A demonic voice rang out. After that, Bai Qing's body transformed into a body of blood, resembling a female devil made of blood. Her body was ethereal as she directly rushed towards the divine weapon. A terrifying sea of blood engulfed everything, instantly engulfing the heavenly deity. That heavenly deity sensed danger. Divine light revolved around him, wanting to defend against the corrosion of the blood. However, he only saw Bai Qing's eyes turning blood-colored. She stared at the heavenly deity and coldly spoke, "Blood judgment." As the sound of her voice faded, the sea of blood roared, corroding the heavenly deity's energy bit by bit. Her blood-colored eyes actually began to glow with blood-colored light. When the light invaded the heavenly deity's body, it directly transformed the heavenly deity's body into a body of blood. What an evil method! A cold voice rang out. Two heavenly deities walked over and stared at Bai Qing, who had turned into a devil. Bai Qing's body became corporeal again. A terrifying wound could be seen on her body as fresh blood flowed out. Clearly, she had risked her injuries to kill her heavenly deity earlier. Blood-colored light permeated the air, healing her injuries. Her eyes were still blood-colored, beautiful and demonic. Evil? If something happened to her when engaged, she was willing to transform into an evil devil. Even if she had to suffer calamity for eternity, she wanted to annihilate those who caused his death. As several heavenly deities died, the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms also grew more vigilant. They surrounded the heavenly deities in the heaven vault, radiating different types of Dao might, suppressing them. After all, they were still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers. Princess Kitamura's soul-freezing energy was unleashed to its limits. Although she had no way to directly kill the heavenly deities, she was still able to greatly restrict them, causing them to be unable to fight with their full strength. For some of the weaker heavenly deities, they didn't even have the time to be distracted. Naturally, the decisive battlefield was still the battles between the hegemonic powers. Little Rascal against the Thunder Clan leader, Qin Kursin against Qin Zheng, Jun Mingchen against the Che clan leader. These characters were the most terrifying. Once they killed their opponents, they would then turn to deal with Princess Kitamura and the others. The danger would rise exponentially. For truly powerful heavenly deities, they could ignore numbers. In an independent world, the Che clan leader wielded a divine scepter and was currently fighting against Jun Mingchen. Jun Mingchen's body was surrounded by divine light, exuding the aura of a supreme emperor. It felt like there was a world revolving around him. His defense was so strong that it was shocking. The Che clan leader attacked several times, but he actually failed to completely shatter Jun Mingchen's defense. At this moment, the scepter that could transform on its own transformed into a golden sword that contained Dao might that could destroy everything. It pierced into the light screen before Jun Mingchen, tearing it apart bit by bit. However, the light screen seemed to be enveloped by many layers of worlds. When one layer was torn apart, another layer would appear. I want to see how powerful your defense is. The Che clan leader was also enraged. He thought that this battle would end easily and he didn't care about his opponent at all. But in truth, he discovered that he was wrong. This unassuming young man who was by Qin Wentian's side in the past was actually someone he had to treat seriously. He stabbed out with a finger, landing on the sword transformed from the scepter. In an instant, in the boundless space, millions upon millions of swords howled in rage, enveloping Jun Mingchen's defenses. After that, they pierced into the light screen. It was like all the swords in the starry space were slashing downwards, tearing apart the light screen bit by bit. "Break!" The Che clan leader roared in rage. Millions upon millions of sword lights tore through everything, indomitable as they stabbed towards Jun Mingchen's body. But at this moment, a starlight screen appeared around Jun Mingchen. The radius of this starlight screen wasn't very large, but it seemed to contain the energy of an entire world within it. When the destructive attack landed, it was actually blocked. When the Che clan leader saw the scene, he frowned. He stared at Jun Mingchen and asked, "Who are you exactly?" "Jun Mingchen." The young man replied. "Jun Mingchen?" The Che clan leader spoke in a low voice. "Just Jun Mingchen?" Jun Mingchen frowned. He didn't understand what the Che clan leader meant. Upon seeing the puzzled look on Jun Mingchen's face, the Che clan leader's frown deepened. Could it be that he was overthinking things? But such strength, as well as that demeanor, were they truly innate? "Kill!" The Che clan leader's finger transformed into a Dao as he slashed out once more. Boundless sword light pierced downwards. Jun Mingchen was within the screen of light and stared at the terrifying scene outside. If his defense was broken through, he would instantly be torn into pieces. Chapter 1979. In the Western Paradise, in the pure and holy land of the Buddhist sect, the ancient Buddhas stood together, chanting their sutras. Countless ancient Buddha characters and Buddhic energy flowed unceasingly into a gigantic palm imprint. An ancient Buddha was enveloped by a golden lotus flower that radiated a resplendent holy light. His eyes were closed as Buddhic chants rang out unceasingly from his mouth. On his holy body, an illusory figure would occasionally appear. However, this wasn't his original appearance, it was like a projection of Qin Wenyin. At this moment, Qin Wenyin was struggling. In that sealed space, Qin Wenyin seemed to have been devoured by the lotus flower. His entire person was enveloped by the lotus light. His body, will, and even his soul were being devoured unceasingly. The Tao of reincarnation was incomparably tyrannical, wanting to directly replace him. This was even more terrifying compared to ordinary possession techniques. This was a type of supremely powerful Tao art. Other than this, he still had to endure the suppression attacks from the Buddhas. From this, one could very well imagine how terrifying the pressure he was facing was. However, he was still bitterly enduring. Even the Buddhas themselves didn't expect him to be able to endure for so long. During this 1 year plus, the Buddhas of the Western Paradise had been devouring his will every day, wanting to crush him. This lasted until today when the reincarnation Buddha and the Buddhas of the Western Paradise appeared together to launch a sure-kill attack on him. Initially, they thought it wouldn't be so difficult, but the tenacity of Qin Wentian's will clearly exceeded their expectations. However, this wouldn't change the ending. Everything was already destined. Qin Wenyin, the heaven vault has already opened. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms have already slaughtered their way in. Just give up. A voice rang out in Qin Wentian's mind, wanting to completely crush his will. If you give up now, I will replace you. I will naturally spare the people of the heaven vault. Buddha is merciful. Qin Wentian spoke. But clearly, this wasn't what he wanted to say. The reincarnation Buddha was speaking to him, but the words were spoken through his mouth. Qin Wentian's will grew weaker and weaker. The golden lotus light grew stronger and stronger. He could sense that everything was about to reach the end, everything was about to end. After a while, the reincarnation Buddha said, "Open." As the sound of his voice faded, the Buddhist palm that was suppressing Qin Wenyin trembled. In the next instant, it collapsed, transforming into boundless Buddhist light that dissipated into nothingness. Qin Wentian's body appeared there just like that. However, he was no longer at his peak. His life seemed to have reached its end, and the reincarnation Buddha would replace him. The Buddhas circled around Qin Wenyin, but the Buddhic light was still incomparably resplendent, unceasingly landing on Qin Wenyin. The reincarnation Buddha moved. He actually walked towards Qin Wenyin as his voice rang out. The Buddha gives birth to a lotus, exchanging the golden body for the next life. This voice seemed to contain a magical power. The golden light from the reincarnation Buddha unceasingly flowed into Qin Wenyin. The golden body of the reincarnation Buddha seemed to be breaking apart bit by bit. The reincarnation Buddha's body turned illusory as he walked towards Qin Wenyan. Finally, his body transformed into a lotus and he directly sat on Qin Wentian's body. The Tao of reincarnation was to sacrifice oneself in exchange for the next life. For the next life, one could start from the beginning, like the cycle of samsara. They could also directly reincarnate into the body of others, replacing them. Naturally, given the reincarnation Buddha's strength, if it was an ordinary person, he definitely wouldn't do this. But this was Qin Wentian's body. What sort of character was Qin Wentian? He was known as the most outstanding genius in the supreme ancient immortal realms, unrivaled. The heaven's son Qin Dangtian, who was once a heavenly genius of the supreme ancient immortal realms, was defeated miserably in his hands, becoming a foil for the reincarnation Buddha. The reincarnation Buddha's rise was like a legend. He controlled the secret of the heaven vault and had the secret to surpassing the 9 astral souls. He had comprehended all sorts of Taos. If he could reincarnate and replace Qin Wenyan, how many heavenly deities in the supreme ancient immortal realms wouldn't be willing to do so? The reincarnation Buddha was a Buddha Lord character. He experienced many reincarnations before he had today's accomplishments, finally becoming a Buddha Lord. Right now, he still wanted to walk even further, but it was extremely difficult for his current body to reach that level. Even if he continued to reincarnate, it was unknown how many lifetimes he would have to cultivate. However, Qin Wenyan allowed him to see a shortcut. Hence, there was the scene today. He had to capture Qin Wenyan no matter what. He would rather give up his body. The Buddhas continued chanting, devouring Qin Wentian's remaining strength, preparing to witness this final scene. Qin Wenyan would become history. From now on, there would only be the reincarnation Buddha in this world. The Buddha Lord of the Western Paradise would borrow Qin Wentian's body to unleash his radiance in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The reincarnation Buddha's shadow gradually merged with Qin Wentian's body. The golden lotus light grew even more resplendent, completely enveloping Qin Wenyan. It was like everything was already destined. As the reincarnation Buddha devoured Qin Wentian's consciousness bit by bit, in the void, the reincarnation Buddha could see Qin Wentian's soul and was being replaced. At this moment, he started to absorb some of Qin Wentian's memories, as well as the secrets he controlled. Impressive! The reincarnation Buddha praised. He opened his eyes and all the Buddhas stopped. The Buddhic chants vanished and the Buddhic light was no longer as intense. The heavenly deities of the Buddhist path who had always been calm actually had smiles on their faces. They exchanged mutual glances as they bowed to Qin Wenyan. Congratulations. Right now, the heaven vault would be under the absolute control of their Western paradise. Also, the reincarnation Buddha would obtain the secret of Qin Wenyan, surpassing the 9 astral souls. The reincarnation Buddha smiled and nodded. At this moment, his golden body transformed into Buddhic light, becoming a sarira that floated before him. He stretched his hand out and received it as a smile appeared on his face. This reincarnation wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Wait for me to control his body first. The reincarnation Buddha spoke. He had just reincarnated into Qin Wentian's body and wasn't completely familiar with it. Right now, he couldn't be considered to have complete control over it. Okay, we will bid our farewell first. The Buddhas nodded. After that, they departed one after another. As for the matters in the heaven vault, they weren't worried at all. Right now, the reincarnation Buddha has already seized control of Qin Wentian's body. In that case, everything has already concluded. The heaven vault would be under their control. The battle there, to them, didn't have much meaning. What they truly needed to guard against was the Grim Reaper. The experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms invaded the heaven vault. It would be best if the heaven vault's defenses were stronger. If that was the case, it would be more beneficial to them. The reincarnation Buddha turned his gaze towards the east as a golden light flashed in his eyes. A brand new era was about to begin. Stepping out, he flew towards a certain direction. An instant later, he came to an ancient hall of the Buddhist path and sat down cross-legged, preparing to take control of this body. He closed his eyes. In the void of his sea of consciousness, The powerful soul and will were all seized by him. Right now, he was the master of everything. What is this? The reincarnation Buddha saw a black dot that glowed with a faint light. His divine sense gushed over and came into contact with that dot of light. In the next instant, an incomparably vast surge of energy gushed forth, like a primordial beast breaking free from its seal. The incomparably resplendent light descended, containing an incomparably powerful soul. A shadow appeared. It was none other than the silhouette of Qin Wenyin. Within this dot of light, there seemed to be a starry world within it. A terrifying sealing energy erupted forth, transforming into the Tao of sealing, frenziedly sealing away the soul energy of the reincarnation Buddha. At the same time, the sealing energy gushed towards every part of the reincarnation Buddha's body, wanting to seize control of this body once again. This body originally belonged to him, it belonged to his soul, it belonged to his will. Even if the reincarnation Buddha used his powerful Tao of reincarnation to assimilate it, as long as he had the advantage, he would still be able to seize control of it. Before this, he used the Tao of sealing to seal half of his energy there precisely because he was waiting for this moment to erupt forth. In the previous environment, with the Buddhas attacking him, there was also the Buddha path's palm imprint suppressing him. He had no way to reverse the situation and could only submit, allowing the other party to control him. Now, the opportunity he had been waiting for finally arrived. The reincarnation Buddha was caught off guard. His soul suffered a backlash and was directly sealed. However, he quickly reacted and unleashed the Tao of reincarnation. Golden light enveloped his body, but he wasn't too familiar with the control of Qin Wentian's body. In fact, one could say that he didn't have complete control over it. He wanted to use Qin Wentian's body to unleash his Tao art, and he wasn't able to completely match it. Before this, he used his golden body to transform into the Tao and enter Qin Wentian's body. But at the instant he decided to reincarnate into Qin Wentian's body, he had already given up on his previous body. In that case, one could very well imagine what kind of situation he was facing now. On the contrary, Qin Wenyin was like a dragon soaring up in the sky, frenziedly seizing the energy that belonged to him, regaining control of his body. Very swiftly, this body was no longer under the reincarnation Buddha's control. In fact, he couldn't even cry for help. The situation was instantly reversed. How can this be? His will trembled. Things that had already ended, how could he fail? Shouldn't everything have already ended? A thought of heaven, a thought of hell. Chapter 1980. He still had control over Qin Wentian's body, but the reincarnation Buddha had lost the power of his original body. How could he still fight against Qin Wenyin? Even though the current Qin Wenyin wasn't at his peak, this body belonged to him after all. Within his body, he still had an advantage against an external soul that had yet to gain control over his body. In fact, the advantage wasn't small. The Tao of sealing and devil energy were unleashed at the same time, sealing the reincarnation Buddha's power, devilizing the Buddha's Tao, allowing him to regain control. Gradually, the black eyes of the reincarnation Buddha that belonged to Qin Wenyin grew brighter and brighter. Within Qin Wentian's body, a golden Buddha lotus flower was still growing. But before it could fully grow, it turned black and was corroded by the devil energy, transforming into a black lotus. After that, it was slowly being refined by the devil energy. On the lotus flower, the shadow of the reincarnation Buddha appeared. He struggled frenziedly as his illusory face contorted madly. No! He was unwilling to accept this. He had already succeeded, how could the tables be turned now? In addition, there were no other Buddhas present now. No one could help him. If he waited until Qin Wenyin completely gained control of this body and destroyed his soul, he, the Buddha Lord of the Western Paradise, would sink into oblivion for all eternity. He wouldn't even have the qualifications to reincarnate. He was unable to accept such an ending. Before this, everything was arranged so perfectly. How did things end up like this? Was it simply because he neglected a black dot? That tiny speck of dust in his soul actually contained half of Qin Wentian's power. When he thought everything was over, it suddenly erupted with ferocious might. Fate was changed because of that speck of dust. A tiny mistake caused him, the Buddha Lord of the Western Paradise, to lose his life, causing the Heaven Vault to return to Qin Wentian's control. In fact, it might even change the future direction of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Arg! His soul roared madly, but it was useless. Everything seemed to have been decided. After some time, Qin Wentian's eyes emitted a terrifying black light. He glanced at the Buddhist hall and the Buddha light on his body shone brightly. The Buddha light seemed to have transformed into a golden lotus. He stepped out and headed outside. Right now, he had no time to find trouble with the Western Paradise. He had to return to the Heaven Vault with his fastest speed. This debt would be settled later. With a single step, Qin Wentian directly exited the Buddha hall. Resplendent Buddhic light radiated from him. From afar, an ancient Buddha saw Qin Wentian, but a faint smile appeared on his face. The reincarnation Buddha was as expected of an ancient Buddha Lord. He managed to control this body so quickly. Many heavenly deities also sensed Qin Wentian. However, they all had faint smiles on their faces and didn't mind it. It was like everything was supposed to be like this. Under their gazes, Qin Wentian was bathed in Buddhic light as he walked out of the Western Paradise, stepping out of this sacred ground of the Buddhist path. After exiting the Western Paradise, Qin Wentian increased his speed, unleashing the terrifying speed of a heavenly deity to the extreme. With every step he took, he traversed a vast distance. Spatial light flashed, and with every step he took, he could teleport an immense distance. His target was the heaven region, the boundless sea region. At this moment, Qin Wentian's eyes were extremely cold. The Heaven Vault had already opened, but he couldn't close it now. If not, his friends and family would be in grave danger. If he opened the Heaven Vault, he would still have a chance to escape. Right now, he had no idea what was happening in the Heaven Vault. He could only rush forward with all his might. In the Heaven Vault, the battle still continued. Jun Mingchen faced the attacks of the Che clan leader with great difficulty. The Che clan leader brandished a supreme-grade divine weapon and pointed a finger at Jun Mingchen. Under the augmentation of the divine weapon, 1,000,000 beams of sword light pierced towards Jun Mingchen's protective world. The star-shaped light screen was like a complete world, but even so, it was still being torn apart bit by bit. The Tao of the world was an extremely powerful heavenly Tao energy. It was said that if one cultivated it to the extreme, they would be able to transcend and form their own world, creating a world system, creating their own laws, allowing them to ascend to the peak of the great Tao. However, the current Jun Mingchen clearly hasn't reached that level yet. Being able to reach his current cultivation realm after a few hundred years of cultivation was already extremely terrifying. Naturally, this wasn't because of the Heaven Vault and the guidance of the heavenly deities. It was also because of his talent. Once, the senior apprentice brother from the heavenly talisman realm said that he had an innate divine body and was destined to be extraordinary. He basically didn't need to put too much effort into cultivation and could directly comprehend world energy, growing stronger bit by bit until he transformed into the Tao. From this, one could see how strong his talent was. However, right now, the opponent he was facing was none other than the Che clan leader, a transcendent character, a hegemon of the supreme ancient immortal realms. In addition, the Che clan leader wielded the supreme divine weapon of the Che clan. If it was an ordinary heavenly deity, they would have long been killed. Jun Mingchen was able to fight against him. From this, one could see that Jun Mingchen's strength has long surpassed ordinary heavenly deities. When the 1,000,000 beams of sword intent landed on the star-shaped light screen, Jun Mingchen's expression was cold. He could feel the star-shaped light screen being torn apart bit by bit. The energy within the star-shaped light screen was howling madly, terrifying to the point where the heavens and earth were being split apart. "Shatter!" Jun Mingchen coldly roared. In an instant, that heaven-rending energy erupted forth as the star-shaped world expanded outwards. It was like the entire world was about to explode as boundless destructive light engulfed everything, wanting to tear the sky apart. Upon feeling that fearsome destructive might, the Che clan leader actually hurriedly retreated. How strong would the destructive might be when a world exploded from the inside? Even for him, he couldn't help but to be wary. This was especially so when he thought of Jun Mingchen. He suddenly thought of a legendary character. The millions of beams of sword light were devoured by the destructive might. Jun Mingchen's body was about to be buried in the boundless dust. This destructive might corroded the star-shaped light screen he created, causing it to collapse. They appeared in the boundless starry space, and that terrifying destructive might was still radiating outwards, causing many heavenly deities who were fighting to cast their gazes over. All of them had looks of shock on their faces. The Che clan leader actually hasn't finished off Jun Mingchen yet? Not only that, the battle between the two of them actually caused such a terrifying might to erupt forth. This was somewhat unusual. The destructive shockwaves gradually dissipated, revealing Jun Mingchen's figure. His long hair fluttered wildly in the wind as his long robes were torn apart, appearing somewhat disheveled. However, this was unable to conceal the transcendent aura he exuded, that supreme aura of a sovereign king. Dao transformation. Jun Mingchen spoke. His voice was extremely calm, but as the sound of his voice faded, his astral souls behind him flashed. After that, 8 worlds appeared, floating in the air. Each world seemed to be an independent existence. At this moment, the 8 worlds all gushed into Qin Wentian's body, causing the world light radiating from him to grow increasingly resplendent. His aura also underwent a transformation, becoming more and more terrifying. Dao transformation? Is he already heading in that direction? The Che clan leader turned ashen. He discovered that in the Heaven Vault, not only was Qin Wentian a great threat, there was also an existence like Jun Mingchen. Other than him, there were also some extraordinary heavenly deities like the heaven-devouring titanic beast. If all of them were to remain alive, they would all be a great threat to the Heaven Vault. The Che clan leader couldn't help but to silently curse in his heart. What power was this exactly? Why were there so many monstrous characters? Jun Mingchen's body seemed to have transformed. He received the augmentation from the Tao of the world, transforming into the Tao. His eyes gleamed with divine light, akin to desolate bolts of lightning that instantly shot out. The Che clan leader waved his hand, forming a golden screen of light before him, blocking the attack. However, Jun Mingchen's attacks didn't stop. He continued stepping forward, like a true god king. His eyes shot out Tao arts, thunder, lightning, flames, ice, all of them transformed into divine light that shot towards the golden screen of light, tearing it apart bit by bit. Could it be that he only comprehended it when he fought against me earlier? The Che clan leader silently cursed. The opponent before him suddenly grew more domineering, taking the initiative to attack him. As a peak character of the supreme ancient immortal realms, he didn't expect that it would be so troublesome to deal with a junior apprentice brother of Qin Wentian. They had still underestimated the strength of the Heaven Vault. Before this, they initially thought that the Heaven Vault would be able to destroy everything, killing everyone who obstructed them. The scepter in the hands of the Che clan leader transformed, transforming into a beam of divine light that blocked before him, allowing Jun Mingchen's attacks to reach him. At the same time, he waved his hands and in an instant, a supremely powerful divine formation manifested. The golden light enveloped the entire starry space. This boundless divine formation had Jun Mingchen as the center. The power of the divine formation was used to deal with him. The Che clan was the #1 weaponsmithing aristocrat clan in the supreme ancient immortal realms. The power that the Che clan leader was most proficient in was the heaven-refining divine formation, able to refine everything in the world. The light from the divine formation radiated out as boundless spiritual light enveloped Jun Mingchen. Jun Mingchen's eyes were cold. He was like a lofty god king. With a step out, an extremely powerful might erupted from him, directly tearing apart the light enveloping him. After that, he punched out, aiming for the divine formation. A thunderous boom rang out. The divine formation was directly penetrated. That terrifying punch seemed to contain the law energy of an entire world. The power of the attack was simply terrifying. I want to see how strong you are. The Che clan leader waved his hand. A moment later, the scepter transformed into boundless divine light that fused into the divine formation. In an instant, This divine formation enveloped everything. Boundless light enveloped Jun Mengchen, preparing to refine him into the divine weapon to amplify the power of the divine weapon. Even if you are truly formed from an entire world, I will still refine the entire world. The voice of the Che clan leader was ice cold. He released his astral souls as Tao energy frenziedly gushed into the divine formation. Boundless runes shone with startling light, enveloping Jun Mengchen within, wanting to incinerate everything. This was true world refinement energy. It could refine everything in the world. Just like what the Che clan leader said, even if it was an entire world, he would still refine it. Jun Mengchen felt that his invincible skin was about to be scorched. When the world refinement energy landed on his body, it began to melt away bit by bit. Chapter 1981. Jun Mengchen's eyes were cold, containing the power of the Tao. When he sensed the heavenly refinement energy, the divine light radiating from him grew even more resplendent, resisting the corrosion of the heavenly refinement energy. His body was infused with the Tao, becoming tyrannical to the extreme. Jun Mengchen's cold eyes shot out frenziedly. In an instant, the divine formation started to crumble. Jun Mengchen also moved, punching out with his fist. It was like an emperor's divine fist, capable of destroying everything, shattering the 9 heavens. With a thunderous boom, the divine formation trembled as cracks appeared. Although this divine formation was infused with an extremely powerful divine weapon, it still had no way to ignore Jun Mengchen's attack. In the next instant, Jun Mengchen's body transformed into lightning, unceasingly attacking, resisting the divine formation's power. For a period of time, the powerful Che clan leader actually had no way to refine him. Occasionally, there would be gazes glancing over, causing even heavenly deities to tremble. As for those experts below the heavenly deity realm who entered the heaven vault, they could only sigh in admiration when they saw the divine battle in the air. The power of the heaven vault was actually so tyrannical, able to resist the invasion of the various hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Although there were still a few hegemonic powers that haven't arrived yet, but even so, the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms that arrived still caused everyone to feel despair. They initially thought that the hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms would only be able to resist the attacks of the Western Paradise. But who would have thought that the experts of the Heaven Vault actually had the strength to fight back? In another battlefield, the Thunder Clan leader was currently fighting against Little Rascal. The Thunder Clan leader wielded a super divine weapon, the Clear Sky Divine Hammer. Every strike of his would cause the heavens and earth to crumble. Even the starry space seemed to be on the verge of destruction. Divine lightning from the 9 heavens illuminated the astral river, destroying constellations. However, regardless of Little Rascal's offense or defense, he was extremely powerful to a terrifying extent. Every part of his body contained the Tao of devouring. Even a single strand of his hair contained the Tao of devouring. He was evolving towards the ultimate form of the heaven-devouring beast, able to devour everything in the world, including the sun, moon, and stars. Other than this, Little Rascal also had a supremely powerful innate ability. After he devoured the Tao energy of his opponent, he was actually able to refine it within his body, transforming it into an all-annihilating attack that blasted towards his opponent. It was extremely difficult to deal with. After he transformed into a gigantic astral beast, his body was incomparably gigantic, but it didn't affect his agility at all. When one thought that it would be easier to hit him due to his huge size, they would only despair when they discovered that other than his speed, even if he was struck by an astral beast, each and every strand of his hair would transform into sharp spikes that transformed into vortexes of devouring energy. The power of his attacks and defenses would be even more terrifying. Hence, right now, the battlefield between the Thunder Clan leader and Little Rascal was extremely terrifying. The Thunder Clan leader transformed into a gigantic divinity. His body was incomparably gigantic, standing in the starry space. His entire body flashed with lightning. It was like his body was a human-shaped lightning constellation. Every time a human and a demonic beast clashed, It would shake the heavens and earth and cause ghosts and gods to weep. This was definitely the battlefield with the greatest commotion in the Heaven Vault. Their battle also caused people to sigh in admiration. Qin Wentian's demonic beast was actually able to fight against the Thunder Clan leader. How did he manage to transform to such an extent in just a few short years? Even if Qin Wenyan cultivated the Tao of time and could change the flow of time, it shouldn't be possible for him to grow so quickly. Qin Kursin was fighting against the Qin clan leader, Qin Zheng. Luo Shenchuan, the 5 demon sovereigns, Sword Monarch Jian Junlai and the others were fighting against the other hegemonic characters. On the other side of the chaotic battle, although Qin and Bai Qing managed to kill several heavenly deities when they were caught off guard, the following battles wouldn't be so easy. Their opponents were all on high alert and didn't dare to be careless at all. The other heavenly deities continued to advance steadily, encircling their enemies. This was especially so when they were enduring Princess Kitamura's soul attacks. They would be extremely cautious and would slowly suppress their enemies bit by bit. Right now, it seemed like they were about to trap Princess Kitamura and the other heavenly deities in the starry space. We will isolate the space. Everyone, arrange your opponents and deal with them one by one. At this moment, a heavenly deity from the prison god clan spoke. The other heavenly deities nodded. After that, numerous terrifying astral prisons appeared, enveloping this starry space, imprisoning everyone within. Be careful, we are all grouped together. The Southern Phoenix matriarch spoke. Their formation shrank as they appeared within one of the prisons. Qing Er's silhouette flashed as the spatial divine sword in her hand slashed out, directly slicing apart the prison. However, the golden barrier of light appeared once more. It was impossible for Qing Er to charge out alone. Hence, the prison was reborn after being destroyed and it was becoming more and more stable. Deal with her first. That heavenly deity from the prison god clan stared at Princess Kitamura. Although she didn't fight directly against the heavenly deities from the start until the end, the threat she posed was the greatest. She was using group attacks, affecting everyone. Even now, their bodies were covered in frost and their souls were so cold that they were shivering. Right now, all of them were using their Tao arts to protect their souls. A terrifying poison descended from the sky, gushing towards the trapped heavenly deities. Princess Kitamura could freeze souls to death. The heavenly deities from the God Extermination Palace were also proficient in poison. Right now, they were like turtles in a jar, wanting to catch all of them in one fell swoop. Prepare to break out of the encirclement. Nanfeng Yaoyue spoke in a light voice. Although they were facing immense danger, her beautiful eyes were still as calm as ever. Her entire body radiated a noble aura. Back in Azure Mystic, she was the matriarch of the Azure Mystic Immortal Realms. Now that everyone was facing danger, she maintained a clear head and acted according to the situation. Given the current situation, it was clear that they couldn't continue fighting together. If not, they would all be killed in one fell swoop by the enemy. Everyone nodded when they heard the Southern Phoenix matriarch's words. They could only break out of the encirclement. Those peak-level heavenly deities were being held back and had no way to deal with them. This also gave them a chance to fight. However, this wasn't a solution. The Heaven Vault didn't only have heavenly deities. There were still many people below the heavenly deity realm in the floating palaces in the boundless starry space. However, after their enemies barged into the Heaven Vault, they thought that they would be able to kill them easily. Hence, they directly started a battle and didn't plan to capture those people. But if they continued fighting, they wouldn't be able to defeat their enemies. They would be in an extremely passive situation and the entire Heaven Vault would be in danger. Retreat. Numerous heavenly deities shot out in different directions. The eyes of the surrounding heavenly deities were filled with cold, killing intent. Although a few heavenly deities had fallen earlier, they still had the advantage in terms of numbers. Hence, they were still in control of the situation. Qing Er and the others retreated in different directions. Qing Er opened up a path with her divine sword, slashing apart the void. The heavenly deities all retreated. Her body transformed into a resplendent beam of light as she rushed out, radiating a terrifying life laceration energy. At the same time, Qiyu followed behind her. With a roar of rage that shook the heavens and earth, he unleashed a battle character imprint, opening up a path for Qing. Qiyu was the Saint Lord's wife. She was naturally the #1 target of protection. Release them first. A heavenly deity spoke, actually preparing to release Qing and Qiyu. They weren't in a hurry, they would split up and deal with them one by one. In the end, none of them would be able to escape. When the heavenly deities retreated, Princess Kitamura's eyes were still closed. Her soul attacks were unleashed to the limits. Everyone was so cold that their bodies were trembling. They protected the heavenly deities, but by doing so, she attracted the attention of many. Beams of cold light shot towards her. Before this, she was already the person everyone wanted to deal with the most. Now, they might as well kill her first. Kill! A cold voice rang out. After that, in the air above Princess Kitamura, resplendent spatial swords slashed apart everything, wanting to destroy this entire space. Princess Kitamura retreated, the space around her seemed to freeze, slowing down. Boom! A spatial prison manifested, enveloping Princess Kitamura within. After that, 2 heavenly deities appeared in the air above the prison. They were both heavenly deities from the prison god clan. They clenched their fists as the spatial prison frenziedly compressed, wanting to destroy everything within it. Yu Huang. Those people who were fleeing in different directions froze when they saw this scene. Qing didn't say anything. Her silhouette flashed as she changed directions, moving towards the direction where Princess Kitamura was. Return. The Southern Phoenix matriarch spoke. Numerous figures turned their heads. Princess Kitamura used her soul attacks to protect them, giving them a chance to escape. How could they abandon Princess Kitamura here? If they sacrificed Yu Huang, given the relationship between her and Qin Wenin, how sad would he be? Block them. A cold voice rang out. The heavenly deities unleashed their Tao arts, breaking apart the void. The 2 heavenly deities seemed to have steeled their hearts, wanting to kill Princess Kitamura first. Such a beauty, it was such a pity that they could only destroy her. Who asked her to be such a great threat? Terrifying Tao arts lacerated everything, landing on Princess Kitamura. Princess Kitamura's Tao of ice had no way to block this destructive might. After that, she only saw 2 heavenly deities appearing before her, launching close-range attacks. A spatial light screen enveloped Princess Kitamura, wanting to destroy her. Princess Kitamura inclined her head and stared at her opponents, her black hair fluttering wildly in the wind. At this moment, that terrifying soul-freezing ability was directly targeted at a single person. Her opponent's soul seemed to be completely under her control. That soul pearl radiated a dazzling light. Die! Princess Kitamura spat out a bone-piercingly cold voice. That expert's soul directly froze. All his movements halted as his entire body was instantly covered in frost. But at this moment, the other heavenly deity instantly seized this opportunity. A golden palm imprint blasted out, slamming into the light screen around Princess Kitamura. In an instant, everything was crushed into dust. Piercing sounds rang out, Princess Kitamura's defenses were shattered. Even her sleeves were torn apart as fresh blood splattered through the air. She groaned in misery. That terrifying Tao energy gushed into her body, wanting to destroy her life force. Yu Huang. Qing's voice was cold. She slashed apart everything with her sword and continued forward, allowing the Tao arts to land on her. At this moment, Princess Kitamura's entire body was bathed in blood. Her eyes seemed to have transformed into a world of ice, staring at the heavenly deity who attacked her. Her eyes gleamed with a terrifying coldness, and in the next instant, the powerful soul of that heavenly deity transformed into frost, causing his body to freeze as well, freezing him in the air. Chapter 1982. In the flood region, in the floating sea, in a forbidden area isolated from the rest of the world. At this moment, this world was undergoing a great change. Everyone's gaze was focused in the same direction. That was the direction of the divine mausoleum. In that direction, it was as though a mirage had appeared. Numerous divine mausoleums were projected in the sky. A silent and terrifying aura drowned everything. Dark clouds enveloped the sky as a storm brewed. Heaven and earth roared angrily, presenting the scene of the end of the world. What was even more terrifying was that in that terrifying storm, one could faintly see an incomparably huge figure. He stood in the center of the storm, surrounded by many terrifying heads that frantically devoured everything, wanting to devour the storm into his head. It was as though he wanted to absorb the power of the entire divine mausoleum. At the edge of the horizon, there was a figure quietly standing there, allowing the storm to wreak havoc. He only quietly watched everything happen. That was the Tomb Keeper. The Tomb Keepers protected the divine mausoleum. They were the ones who understood the divine mausoleum the best. The Tomb Keeper of this generation had once prophesied that there would be a great change in the divine mausoleum. Now, the prophecy seemed to have come true. The divine mausoleum was undergoing a great change. It seemed like he had long seen through some things. It was rumored that a group of extremely terrifying characters from ancient times were buried in this divine mausoleum. There were divine kings among them. They died in a great war, and their burial place became the divine mausoleum, spreading their Tao into the divine mausoleum. In the ancient legends, the supreme experts buried in the divine mausoleum could borrow the Tao to be reborn and return to the world. Of course, no one knew if this legend was true or false. But maybe the Tomb Keeper saw through something and predicted that the divine mausoleum would undergo a great change. However, it seemed that the change in the divine mausoleum was caused by that outsider. He cultivated a terrifying evil power, and now he was devouring the endless power of the divine mausoleum. The mausoleum guardians didn't interfere. They knew that the mausoleum guardians were bound by rules. The divine mausoleum would bestow them with power, but at the same time, they would also be bound by some rules. Everyone knew that before they found another mausoleum guardian to replace them, they were not allowed to leave this forbidden land. Even at that very moment, the mausoleum guardian was merely watching from the sidelines. He did nothing to stop the evil cultivator from devouring the power of the divine mausoleum. Other than the Tomb Keeper and that evil cultivator, there was another figure standing in the divine mausoleum. It was none other than Qin Dang Tian. He stood in the midst of the tempest and inclined his head, staring at the evil face that Yu Changkong transformed into devouring everything. His eyes were cold. Would all the terrifying energy in the divine mausoleum belong to Yu Changkong? Qin Dang Tian was filled with reluctance. During these years in the divine mausoleum, his improvements were extremely great and his cultivation base had transformed. Yu Changkong, this evil cultivator, actually wanted to surpass him and seize the power of the divine mausoleum? But when he thought of this, Qin Dang Tian stepped forward, directly moving towards Yu Changkong. His astral soul flashed as the absolute beginning astral soul radiated a dazzling light. His astral soul transformed into a Tao as a terrifying Tao might gush towards Yu Changkong. Yu Changkong's evil eyes gleamed with coldness as he glanced at Qin Dang Tian. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes. Did Qin Dang Tian want to stop him? No one could stop him. He has already awakened. Naturally, he was still Yu Changkong, the Yu Changkong who had fused the memories of his two lives. Once the energy in the divine mausoleum was completely devoured by him, he would be able to swiftly recover to his peak state and save many years of cultivation. Back then when that fellow was buried here, it truly saved him a lot of trouble. Yu Changkong stretched his hand forward. His palm filled with black mist blotted out the sky, resembling a bottomless pit of darkness. Numerous heads appeared from the darkness and directly lunged towards Qin Dang Tian, wanting to devour Qin Dang Tian as well. The absolute beginning Tao manifested frenziedly as a terrifying white divine light appeared in the sky. It was like a sharp white sword that could slash apart all energy in the world. When it slashed down on the evil heads, those devil-like heads directly transformed into black mist of death qi and dissipated bit by bit. Qin Deng, you dare to stop me? Yu Changkong had an evil smile on his face. Are you courting death? Do you believe that I won't annihilate your entire Qin clan? I will devour your entire clan and transform them into nourishment. How can a lowly evil cultivator achieve the great Tao? Qin Dang Tian mocked. His absolute beginning astral soul's ability to manifest transformations grew even more terrifying compared to before. Everywhere the white light passed by, the black mist would all dissipate into dust. You overestimate yourself. No wonder you would be defeated so miserably in the hands of Qin Wenyin. Yu Changkong mocked. The white skeletons kept on appearing, emitting terrifying cackling sounds. They actually directly affected Qin Dongtian's will, causing Qin Wentian's figure to appear in his mind. It felt like the person he was facing now was no longer Yu Changkong but Qin Wentian instead. Qin Wentian was his heart devil. This negative energy was stimulated by Yu Changkong. Qin Dangtian had to face it head-on. Yu Changkong controlled all negative Dao arts in the world and was able to influence the hearts of people. Qin Dongtian's eyes gleamed with a blood-red light as his aura gushed forth violently. In his mind, he kept on replaying everything about Qin Wenyin. That humiliating battle, as well as Chu Nichang's betrayal. Back then when Qin Wenyin arrived at the Qin clan, he instantly fell from a heaven chosen and became a laughingstock. Everything was because of Qin Wentian's existence. His heart devil transformed into numerous devils. All of them were Qin Wentian's silhouettes. All of them rushed towards him, causing Qin Dangtian to feel despair and pain. This was like an opponent he couldn't defeat. I didn't expect that after so many years of cultivation and gaining insights in the divine mausoleum, I still haven't severed it. A voice rang out in Qin Dongtian's mind. He closed his eyes as Goddess Nichang's beautiful face gradually faded from his mind. He thought of another supreme beauty. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens, lofty and unreachable. She was incomparably cold and had a shocking cultivation base. She was none other than Qin Kursin. There were so many outstanding women in the world, why couldn't he walk out of them? There was also Qin Wentian. Wasn't Qin Wentian's purpose precisely to defeat him? Now, how could he still be controlled by his heart devil? Yu Changkong, this isn't my heart devil. It's your heart devil. Qin Dangtian coldly spoke. At the end, a voice rang out. The absolute beginning Tao manifested frenziedly, manifesting numerous devils. Each of these devils was based on Qin Wenyin as they walked towards Yu Changkong. From what I know, ever since the day you met Qin Wenyin, you have already become a laughingstock. Everyone in the world is laughing at you. You have lost to him many times and have never won against him before. Do you want to kill him? Qin Dongtian's voice contained a powerful enticement. Yu Changkong's eyes flashed as an evil smile appeared on his face. You actually want to use my Dao to deal with me? If it was in the past, I might really be affected. But the me now is no longer the Yu Changkong of the past. From afar, the tomb keeper quietly stood there, listening to their conversation and watching their battle. The terrifying tempests of the divine mausoleum unceasingly gushed towards the two of them as shocking sounds of collision rang out. Although Qin Dangtian was strong, he was still being suppressed. He didn't know what the ending would be. However, he didn't care about the ending. He was more interested in their conversation, as well as the people they mentioned. Right now, he only hoped that everything would end soon. If that's the case, he would have completed his mission as the tomb keeper and could leave. In truth, the current divine mausoleum could no longer restrict him. However, he was still willing to follow his mission. After all, he had obtained many things here. A man should have an indomitable spirit. How could he go back on his words? What an evil method. He calmly watched the battle. When he saw Yu Changkong's various methods, he silently mused. However, Qin Dangtian wasn't ordinary as well. With his powerful will, he persisted on fighting. At this moment, the tempests of the divine mausoleum were like azure dragons that wanted to devour everything. A pair of eyes appeared in the sky, staring at the two of them. Yu Changkong inclined his head and stared at that pair of eyes. Old friend, I've come to see you. Let's conquer the supreme ancient immortal realms together. From now on, you and I shall reign supreme in the supreme ancient immortal realms. That pair of eyes gleamed with a demonic light. After that, a fearsome tempest bore down on the sky. The azure dragon flew towards Yu Changkong and Qin Dangtian. Yu Changkong's silhouette flashed as he flew towards the tempests in the sky. The entire sky seemed to be blocked by him. An incomparably terrifying head swallowed everything in its path. Boom! An apocalyptic might erupted forth. The Azure Dragon actually started fighting against Yu Changkong. Qin Dongtian's eyes turned cold. He soared up into the air and joined the battle, wanting to fight against Yu Changkong together with him. He wanted to obtain this strength as well. It was unknown when, but a beautiful middle-aged woman appeared beside the tomb keeper. She quietly stood there, watching everything that happened. The battle shook the heavens and earth. After a long time, Yu Changkong's roar of rage rang out. "It's about to end." That beautiful woman spoke softly. The tomb keeper nodded. During the battle, Yu Changkong frenziedly tried to seize the energy from the divine mausoleum. However, the energy within the divine mausoleum would rather choose Qin Dangtian. This was why Yu Changkong could only seize a portion of the energy. The destructive tempests gradually weakened, like everything was about to end. The tomb keeper held his wife's hand. Their silhouettes flashed as they flew towards the town. They stood in the air and spoke. "This forbidden ground is about to open. Who is willing to leave? You can come with me." Many figures flew over. Among them were some old people. They quietly stood behind the husband and wife, their eyes gleaming with sharpness. Finally, they could leave. Could it be that they could return to the supreme ancient immortal realms? In the direction of the divine mausoleum, fissures appeared on the ground like there was a huge earthquake. The sky trembled as the earth split apart. From afar, huge waves gushed over like tsunamis, wanting to destroy everything. Many people glanced over. It was rumored that the divine mausoleum was the foundation of this world. Now that the divine mausoleum was about to disappear, would this world disappear together with it? What was the outside world like? Many people mused in their hearts, feeling a sense of longing. They stared at the tomb keeper as they walked behind him. They were willing to follow him out to see the outside world. "Let's go." The tomb keeper stepped out, moving forward. He didn't turn his head back. It was like all of this had nothing to do with him. Chapter 1983. The suspended sea flowed in reverse, and the surface of the suspended sea was like a mirror. At this moment, a group of people walked out from it, and the two people in the lead were none other than the tomb keeper and his wife. At the instant they came out, they stood in the air and inclined their heads, staring at the blue sky. They couldn't help but have a look of intoxication on their faces. After so many years, they finally came out. Not only that, their cultivation had also improved. During these years, their mental states had changed greatly. They were much more peaceful compared to the past, but this didn't mean that they would forget everything that happened in the past. "Uncle Black." The tomb keeper called out. Behind him, an old man walked out. At this moment, although he seemed very calm, he was actually suppressing the palpitations in his heart. They came out. Ever since their master brought them into the forbidden ground of the divine mausoleum and became the tomb keeper, his cultivation base grew stronger and stronger. The insights he gained from his two lives combined together, in addition to the unique conditions of the divine mausoleum, the man before them was much stronger than ever before. "It's been tough on you during those years." The tomb keeper spoke. "Master, this is something I should have done. The young master has inherited master's talent. He would definitely not disappoint master." A rare smile appeared on the middle-aged man's face. One could still vaguely see the handsomeness he once exuded from his face. "Naturally, I already roughly know how he is now." From the conversation between the two of them. Upon thinking of the two of them, Uncle Black frowned. That young man is a descendant of that clan. With master's current cultivation base, even the divine mausoleum is unable to restrict him. Why is there a need to keep him alive? The middle-aged man glanced at Uncle Black as he calmly replied, "That young man should be his son. Since that's the case, even without the restrictions of the divine mausoleum, I won't touch him. When his cultivation base is strong enough, I will send him back. I will personally head there." Uncle Black's eyes flashed as he nodded. This was his personality. He would allow the descendants of his enemies to grow stronger. The people of the world would eventually see everything. They would see what sort of character his master was. Everything in the past would come to an end, turning into dust. When he thought of this, his heart involuntarily surged with emotions. That little fellow, how strong has he become now? How much anticipation was there for him? At this moment, the middle-aged man took out his messaging crystal and said softly, "Now that we are out, there is no longer a barrier in the Forbidden Land. We can contact each other through the messaging crystal." The divine mausoleum was a special place that could even block out divine senses. Such a powerful barrier made it so that Qin Zheng had no way to contact Qin Dangtian. The middle-aged man also had no way to contact his daughter. But now that they came out, they could do so. Curson, he sent his inner sight in and called out. At this moment, in the heaven vault, Qin Curson was currently fighting against Qin Zheng. When she heard the voice in her mind, her beautiful eyes flashed with a dazzling light. After that, she didn't say anything. She took out her messaging crystal and directly released it, causing it to float in the air as beams of light enveloped it. A moment later, everything she saw was directly transmitted to the divine sense in her messaging crystal. All of this was transmitted into the mind of the tomb keeper through his messaging crystal. Despite the vast distance between them, he felt like he was personally witnessing the deity-level battle in the heaven vault. Naturally, he also saw the opponent Qin Curson was facing now. Qin Zheng. The tomb keeper coldly spoke. This was truly too dramatic. Curson was actually fighting against Qin Zheng. His attention soon turned to the other battlefields, wanting to search for the silhouette of a certain person. However, he didn't manage to find him. He only saw many heavenly deities fighting against each other. Also, that space seemed to be the heaven vault. In the starry space, the 9 heavenly layers were bathed in the starry space. Child. The tomb keeper clenched his fists. He knew that if there was someone who could open the heaven vault and control it, that person would definitely be him. It could only be him. In that case, this deity-level battle must have something to do with him. At this moment, a voice rang out in his mind. This was Qin Curson's voice, telling him the reason for this deity-level battle as well as who the participants were. When he heard this, the tomb keeper's calm aura suddenly fluctuated as a heaven-shaking might gushed forth. The people around him felt their hearts trembling when they felt the pressure. The beautiful middle-aged woman beside him glanced at him. She asked in a light voice, "What happened?" "Take a look." He transmitted the scenes in his mind to the beautiful middle-aged woman through his divine sense. Very soon she also saw everything. Great waves rose up in her heart, causing her to feel extremely restless. She also saw an extremely familiar figure. It was none other than her father. He was actually there as well, participating in this deity-level battle. "Some of them are injured." She softly spoke, feeling some worry. Although she didn't know who exactly they were, it was very possible that this had something to do with her son. "I'll head there right away." The tomb keeper stood in the air. He suddenly closed his eyes as a terrifying energy gushed forth from him. At this moment, in the boundless starry space, resplendent astral light cascaded downwards, bathing him in boundless astral light. "Borrowing the path from the starry space," said the middle-aged man. As the sound of his voice faded, the starlight in the sky grew even brighter. An illusory figure seemed to leave his body, reaching the 9 heavens and heading straight for the 9 heavens astral river. At this moment, there were indeed people who were injured in the battle in the heaven vault. After Princess Kitamura killed 2 heavenly deities, she was heavily injured. After that, even her soul suffered a backlash. Those heavenly deities who surrounded her frenziedly retaliated. Qin and the others returned, standing guard around Princess Kitamura. The white-robed killing god slaughtered his way through the heavenly deities. Everywhere his divine sword passed by, no one dared to block it. But as Princess Kitamura's soul attacks were weakened, the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms could focus fully on the battle. It was no longer so easy to deal with them. All sorts of Dao arts blasted out, causing Qin and the others to face an extremely terrifying pressure. Qi Yu from the Battle Saint tribe had the courage to defend against 10,000 enemies. This was something he had to bear. But it was precisely because he was at the forefront that he was heavily injured. His body was filled with wounds, and there were even some places where his flesh and bones could be seen. It was a shocking sight, but his battle intent was still as shocking as ever. For experts from the Battle Saint tribe, their battle intent wouldn't be extinguished until they were at their last breath. Bai Qing was also one of the heavenly deities who was heavily injured. She fought too crazily, transforming into a sea of blood, but she used her injuries to deal with her enemies. She had no fear of death. How could she not be heavily injured? Gradually, the blood on her body was about to dry up. However, her eyes were still as cold as ever. Her blood-colored eyes were filled with tears of blood as she screamed in her heart, "Wen Engage, where are you? Are you okay?" A thunderous roar rang out. This was Qi Yu's voice. He was struck in the chest by someone using a Dao art, causing his chest to shatter. He stared at the bloody hole in his chest before he inclined his head and stared at the sky. "Saint Lord, I've done my best." The heavenly deities in the heaven vault were trapped in the center. Their surroundings were filled with destructive tempests. It felt like their doomsday had arrived. Many of them gradually felt despair. The other experts were being held back. They basically had no time to care about them. As for those below the heavenly deity realm, they still needed their protection. Was the heaven vault really going to be destroyed? Was there really no way for that legendary young man to return? The tempests of destruction ravaged the area. The Dao arts were boundless. The eyes of those heavenly deities that rushed over were filled with coldness and bloodthirstiness. During the course of the battle, 2 more heavenly deities died. Under the situation where they had the absolute advantage, they actually lost so many heavenly deities. This was simply shameful. Luckily, the battle was about to end. Their enemies were gradually losing their combat prowess, but they still couldn't lower their guard. After all, there were quite a few madmen among them. "Qin Wenin, you bastard. This daddy hasn't lived long enough yet." Bujie cursed at the air. Although he was a monk from the Wenxin temple and changed his path to the devil path, he was still a shameless and lecherous monk. But at this moment, the devil intent radiating from him had weakened. His entire body was bathed in blood, and he was like an arrow at the end of its flight. At this moment, Qin Wenin, who was extremely far away, seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly felt an intense pain in his heart as a bad premonition appeared. When he was trapped in the Western Paradise, he wasn't afraid at all. But right now, terror appeared in his heart. Since the heaven vault was opened, a long period of time has already passed. Now that the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms have killed their way into the heaven vault, what would the situation be like? He didn't dare to think about it. Although his speed was extremely fast, the distance between the Western Paradise and the heaven region was simply too great. He still needed some time, and he wouldn't be able to rush back in time. This was why he was filled with terror. However, he still unleashed his strength to the limits and let out a beast-like roar. He frenziedly burned his energy as he sped towards the heaven region. The terror in his heart grew increasingly intense. "Wendian." All of a sudden, a voice rang out in his ears. Qin Wentian's body violently trembled. Although his messaging crystal was destroyed in the Western Paradise, he could still receive the messages from Qing'er and the others. Qing'er and the others' messaging crystals contained his divine sense. This voice was transmitted by none other than Qing'er. "Qing'er." Qin Wendian clenched his fists tightly. When he heard that voice, he felt even more fear. "I love you." A gentle voice rang out in his mind. It was so gentle, there was no trace of coldness, only tenderness. "You wait for me." Qin Wendian roared at the sky, madly rushing forward. However, he grew more and more afraid, more and more. It was too late. "Wendian." Another voice rang out, sounding somewhat weak. This time around, it wasn't Qing'er's voice. "Yu Huang." Qin Wendian felt pain in his heart. They kept sending him messages. Were they already facing a dead end? "I like you." This voice rang out in his ears, causing Qin Wentian's heart to tremble violently. He roared in rage, "I know, I know." He felt hatred in his heart. He hated himself. He clearly knew Yu Wang's feelings, but why didn't he expose it? He hated himself for being useless. Despair filled his heart. Although he wasn't here, he could imagine what everyone in the heaven vault was facing. If it wasn't for the fact that they were in a dead end, how could Qing'er and Yu Huang possibly transmit their voices to each other? They had never spoken like this before. Chapter 1984. Qin Wentian's heart was filled with despair. The people in the heaven vault were also filled with despair. Just like what Qin Wentian had expected, Qing'er and Princess Kitamura knew that they were in a dire situation. This was why they took out their messaging crystals to bid farewell to him. Those few words of warmth were their final farewell. Upon seeing the attacks from the heavenly deities, Qiyu, Bujie and the others created a heavenly Dao light screen to defend. However, it was already too late. The eyes of the heavenly deities in the surroundings flashed with cold, killing intent. Although there were many beautiful heavenly deities here, they still wanted to kill them. These people were too dangerous. They actually killed quite a few heavenly deities. Boom! Destructive lightning blasted down, wanting to break through the final defense. Dao arts continued to rain down, causing cracks to appear on the light screen. The energy formed from the ancient battle characters was dissipating unceasingly. Qiyu roared in rage. He was like a god of war. However, his gigantic body was still lacerated as fresh blood flowed unceasingly. It's over! A heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan roared in rage. Everything was over. Qin Wentian was finished off by the Western Paradise and the Heaven Vault would be taken over by them. A legendary era that belonged to Qin Wentian was about to come to an end. He would no longer be the person who could decide the situation of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Although Qing'er and the others were filled with despair, they didn't panic. All of them used the last of their strength to fortify their defenses and made preparations to retaliate. Even if they died, it was better if they could kill as many as they could. Wentian Gidge. Bai Qing inclined her head and stared at the sky. Her blood-colored eyes were filled with sorrow. Wentian Gidge has experienced so much but he still couldn't reach the peak? She felt some reluctance. At this moment, she saw a resplendent beam of astral light cascading down from the 9 heavenly layers. This incomparably resplendent astral light enveloped the entire battlefield, causing all the heavenly deities to involuntarily raise their heads. It was extremely bizarre to see a beam of astral light cascading down from the 9 heavenly layers. "Stay your hand." A low-sounding voice rang out, like a heavy hammer slamming into the hearts of everyone. This voice came from the sky, causing the hearts of countless people to tremble as they inclined their heads and stared at the sky. The Heaven Vault. Could it be that there were still powerful characters cultivating on the constellations in the 9 heavenly layers? An illusory figure appeared, bathed in boundless starlight. He descended from the 9 heavens, his path paved with starlight. However, this figure was a little blurry, and his features couldn't be seen clearly. Only his silhouette could be seen, but even so, one could still sense the imposing aura exuding from him. A top-level heavenly deity frowned. This indistinct figure wasn't a true person, lacking life, more like something formed from the Tao. This was a little similar to the methods of the Grim Reaper back then. The Grim Reaper didn't appear, but the Heaven Vault and the Western Paradise both had black screens of death appearing at the same time, blotting out the sky. How did this happen? Could the Grim Reaper appear in 2 different places at the same time? Furthermore, they were so far apart. Many of the battling Empyrean gods paused. Qing'er's side was still bitterly holding on. They raised their heads and stared at the sky. Could it be that someone had come to rescue them? Continue to kill. A heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan spoke. They couldn't wait any longer. They didn't know if there would be any more changes. The blurry figure in the air turned his gaze over, shooting out a terrifying beam of cold light. After that, a heaven-shaking devil might bore down, blotting out the sky, transforming into a heavenly devil palm that shot towards the heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan who just spoke. A stifling pressure bore down. When that heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan sensed how powerful this palm was, his eyes flashed with a dazzling light. Boundless thunder and lightning transformed into a gigantic lightning palm that blasted out, colliding with the devil palm. With a thunderous boom, the lightning palm directly exploded. The devil palm continued on its way. That heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan was basking in divine might as he retreated. However, he only saw the gigantic palm imprint blasting towards this entire space. With a thunderous boom, the entire sky seemed to be collapsing as terrifying devilish vortexes of darkness appeared. With a thunderous boom, that heavenly deity from the Thunder Clan screamed in pain. His body was split into 6, directly destroyed by that palm imprint. This caused the hearts of the heavenly deities in the surroundings to tremble violently. A single palm strike destroyed a heavenly deity. "Children, it's fine now." That figure spoke to Qing and the others, sounding like a benevolent elder. This caused Qing and the others to feel bewildered as strange expressions appeared on their faces. They stared at the shadow in the air. Who was this person? Why did he refer to them as children? Could it be that he was Wenqian's elder? But no matter who it was, hope reignited in their hearts. If they could survive, it would naturally be for the best. Those heavenly deities who surrounded Qing and the others all hesitated, not daring to act recklessly. They were just a step away from ending the battle. But now, a supreme figure suddenly appeared in the air, destroying a heavenly deity with a single palm strike. Who would dare to act recklessly? Who are you? The Thunder Clan leader broke away from the battlefield with Little Rascal. His body was still incomparably gigantic, transforming into a god of thunder as he stared at the shadow in the air. All invaders, scram out of the heaven vault. That figure in the air coldly spoke, like an order, unquestionable. Arrogant. You didn't even come with your true self and you actually dare to boast so shamelessly. The Thunder Clan leader coldly replied. All of them gathered in the heaven vault and were only one step away from obtaining it. How could they be willing to retreat? Boom! The blurry figure in the air stomped down, causing the sky to tremble. He lifted his palm and directly blasted it towards the Thunder Clan leader. This palm imprint covered the entire sky. It was incomparably gigantic, locking down the space above the Thunder Clan leader. The Thunder Clan leader roared in rage. A demonic beast couldn't take him down after such a long time, and now, there were even more problems. He suppressed the anger in his heart and lifted the clear sky divine hammer, manifesting divine lightning from the 9 heavens as he smashed it towards the gigantic palm imprint. Even the starry space seemed like it was about to shatter. That terrifying might shook the heavens and earth. The demonic palm print shook the heavens and slammed into the clear sky divine hammer. After that, it actually split into 6, transforming into 6 terrifying vortexes. Those vortexes swallowed the entire world and descended frenziedly, wanting to suck the body of the Thunder Clan leader into them. What power is this? Lei Clan leader's expression changed drastically. It was as if he had fallen into the 6 paths whirlpools, wrapping around his body and trying to bury his huge body in them. He let out a roar of rage. The clear sky divine hammer danced frenziedly as divine lightning shot out from his eyes, blasting towards the 6 vortexes. Each of the vortexes seemed to contain a different Tao. There was the Tao of devouring, the Tao of dimensional space, and even the Tao of samsara. It was terrifying to the extreme. Force of 6 paths. The peak stage heavenly deities all felt the pressure as their hearts pounded. Who was this person exactly? Why was he so strong? And this was in addition to the fact that his true self didn't descend here. If not, he would surely be even more terrifying. The Thunder Clan leader's frenzied attacks finally broke free from one of the vortexes. He inclined his head and stared at the sky as an intense wariness could be seen in his eyes. Who are you exactly? The Thunder Clan leader asked. When did such a character appear in the supreme ancient immortal realms? At this moment, a figure flashed by. This figure was extremely beautiful. It was none other than Qin Kursin. She stared at the sky and called out, "Father!" Father? The eyes of everyone flashed. They already knew the identity of this person. The tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum. Before this, Qin Kursin said that there was someone in the divine mausoleum who had a connection with Qin Wenyan. She told the Western Paradise to treat Qin Wenyan well. Could it be that this person was actually her father? In that case, this beautiful young woman originally had a connection with Qin Wenyin as well? Qin Wenyin, how did he accomplish this exactly? Why were all the experts from the various powers related to him? Right now, another extremely powerful character appeared. The Western Paradise has already dealt with Qin Wenyin. In that case, didn't that mean that this person was going to fight against the Western Paradise? Sir, taking down the Heaven Vault is the intention of the Western Paradise. A heavenly deity spoke. That shadow glanced at the person who spoke. Although the heavenly deity couldn't see his eyes clearly, he could still sense how sharp they were. Scram! A loud roar rang out, causing the starry space to tremble. The hearts of everyone trembled at the same time. That voice contained an incomparably tyrannical devil might. The heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms turned ashen. Could it be that they really had to retreat like this? Boom! Seeing that no one had any reaction, a world-destroying devil might bore down on them. The terrifying might enveloped the hearts of everyone, causing the heavenly deities to feel somewhat helpless. As heavenly deities, they should already be characters that stood at the highest level. However, there was actually a truly supreme character who could cause them to lose their will to fight. Also, this wasn't the true body of this person, it was an incarnation of the Tao. It was very possible that this person wasn't in the heaven region and was in a place extremely far away. Such terrifying power was something they didn't dare to imagine. At the very least, ordinary heavenly deities wouldn't be able to do this. Even for those peak heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms, they wouldn't be able to do this. The hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms joined forces, but they actually couldn't even take down a single heaven vault? I hope you can endure the wrath of the Western Paradise. The Thunder Clan leader coldly spoke. After that, he turned and departed. Upon seeing this scene, the expressions of the experts here grew even more unsightly. Did they actually fail? Danger, are you all right? Qin Zheng's wife knew that this person came from the divine mausoleum. This caused her to think of her son. The appearance of the tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum, did this indicate something? At this moment, she basically didn't think about who the person who appeared in the starry space was. She also didn't think that this powerful character had a connection with her in the past. She didn't think about it, Qin Zheng also didn't think about it. Today, they had no way to take down the Heaven Vault. Everything could only be left to the Western Paradise. With such a powerful character protecting Qin Wenyin, most probably the Western Paradise would have to show some of their true strength, right? Chapter 1985. In the ancient battlefield of ancient Azure Mystic, the area that had always been covered by dark clouds was now covered with golden Buddhic light. This Buddhic light blotted out the sky, replacing the dark clouds as it shone with a holy light. Above this holy Buddhic light, numerous Buddha statues could be faintly seen. It was like there were countless ancient Buddhas above, but in truth, all of these were illusory. Opposite the Buddhic light, a terrifying death chi could be seen, clashing against the holy Buddhic light. Everything will end soon. Since ancient Azure Mystic has already been destroyed, why are you so stubborn? Wait until my pure land of Buddhism illuminates the supreme ancient immortal realms. There will only be a single type of faith in the world, there will be no more slaughter. From the Buddhic light, a voice rang out, speaking in an extremely calm tone. If you can predict everything, you wouldn't have failed at the last moment back then. Back then, you failed to take down ancient Azure Mystic. Today, you will still fail. This is your fate. The cold voice replied. The death chi in it churned wildly. You are still daydreaming. It's over, this is fate. Very soon, everything will end. The holy light flashed, its voice was filled with intense confidence. Some people are born to fight against fate. Let's wait and see. The Grim Reaper spoke. The Buddhic light and the death chi were still clashing against each other. It was like they have been like this for a very long time. Emichim? At this moment, a surprised voice rang out from the Buddhic light. An illusory scene appeared above the Buddhic light. It was actually the scene of the Heaven Vault. Who is he? The Buddha asked. A person who fights against fate. The Grim Reaper calmly replied, "You have failed again." Failed? The Buddha shook his head. The person you are waiting for has already disappeared forever. He is currently in the Western paradise. You are still as confident as ever. But now, where is your original body exactly? You shouldn't have fully recovered, right? If not, you wouldn't have been so afraid to show your face. The Grim Reaper coldly asked. It won't be long before you see it. As the sound of his voice faded, the boundless golden Buddhic light retreated. The holy light that filled the sky, in an extremely short instant, completely dissipated into nothingness, leaving this world. Ancient Azure Mystic was once again enveloped by dark clouds. The atmosphere was filled with a deathly stillness. There were no signs of life at all. In the Heaven Vault, the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms all retreated. The people in the Heaven Vault all felt joy at the fact that they survived the calamity. They didn't expect that at the most critical juncture, a powerful existence would descend from the starry space, shocking the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Many people looked over. Chi Yu bowed and said, "Thank you for saving me, Senior." "No need." That illusory figure waved his hands. "Where is Wenin?" Everyone's eyes flashed. Sure enough, he knew Qin Wenin. In that case, this peerless master had acted because of Qin Wenin. Moreover, he had called Qin Wentian's name directly. Their relationship seemed to be unusual. The Saint Lord is currently trapped in the Western Paradise. Right now, he might have encountered some trouble or the Saint Lord wouldn't have opened the Heaven Vault. Chi Yu's expression was cold. When he thought of Qin Wenin, he felt a little uneasy. Nothing must happen to the Saint Lord. "I'll be there soon." The illusory figure spoke again. After speaking, that Tao body gradually vanished. After all, this wasn't his true body, it was merely a manifestation of his Tao. It was precisely because of this that he allowed the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms to leave. This debt of revenge would be settled in the future. There was no hurry. When the illusory figure in the starry space vanished, everyone was speculating. Who was that person exactly? They had no idea that Qin Wenin was acquainted with such a powerful character. Clearly, that person wasn't the Grim Reaper. Many people turned their gazes to Qin Kursin. In this place, most probably only Qin Kursin would be able to unravel this mystery. However, Qin Kursin didn't seem to have any intentions of saying anything. She calmly stood there and flew towards a direction alone. Her personality was extremely proud and aloof, but her strength was extremely powerful. She could even delay the Qin clan leader, Qin Zheng. From this, one could see how terrifying she was. Her personality was naturally because of the environment she grew up in. Since young, she grew up in the Divine Mausoleum. There weren't many people there and they didn't speak much either. It was very quiet and hence, her current personality was nurtured. "Many thanks." Jun Mingchen stared at Qin Kursin from afar as he clasped his hands in thanks. He also felt a lingering fear. If something happened to Qinger and Yu Huang, how would he answer to his senior brother Qin? Luckily, everything has ended. Now, he could only pray that nothing happened to his senior brother Qin. He would definitely take revenge for the hatred today in the future. Numerous figures flashed as everyone gathered together. Qinger, Yu Huang, Bai Qing, Qi Yu and the others were all injured, but at this moment, they didn't care about their injuries. They were waiting for the arrival of that mysterious expert. If Qin Wenin encountered trouble, this mysterious expert would bring them to the Western Paradise. Other than him, no one else would be able to do this. Mo Qingqing, Changqing the Great, Dark North Immortal Emperor and the others respectively walked down from the starry space. Mo Qingqing, the Evergreen Immortal Emperor, the Dark North Immortal Emperor and the others all walked down from the starry space. They had all witnessed the battle earlier and felt extremely anxious in their hearts. Many of them saw the miserable state of Qinger and Baiming Yuhuang and almost felt despair. Tears of pain flowed out of their eyes, hating themselves for being useless and not being able to participate in the battle. If they participated, they would only be a burden. They could only hide and watch. Luckily, they were all fine. Although they were injured, they were still alive. Elder Sister Qing Yu Huang. Mo Qingqing called out in a light voice. She walked to the side of Qing'er and Yu Huang and held their hands. Earlier, her heart was filled with pain and she was cursing herself for being useless. "I'm fine." Qing'er smiled at Mo Qingqing like she was consoling her. They had been together for a long time and were like sisters. When she saw Mo Qingqing's expression, she instantly knew what Mo Qingqing was thinking. They held each other's hands tightly. Mo Qingqing stared at the faces here. Before this, she who was strong and didn't cry, was now shedding tears. She had deep feelings for everyone in the heaven vault, going through life and death together, never abandoning each other. They fought side by side. When they encountered danger, those who could flee all returned to continue fighting, protecting each other. This feeling caused their cold hearts to feel waves of warmth. The heaven-devouring beast transformed back into an adorable little rascal and flew over, leaping into Qingqing's embrace. "Qing, Yu Huang, by Qing, all of you are very brave." Little rascal spoke in a childish manner, exuding a sense of cuteness. There was no trace of the baleful aura he exuded when he transformed back into an ancient beast. "Good job." Mo Qingqing rubbed little rascal's head, feeling very moved. Everyone was using their lives to protect each other, disregarding everything to fight. "Let's recover from our injuries first." Nanfeng Yaoyue spoke. Everyone nodded their heads lightly and sat down to cultivate. Astral light cascaded down, landing on the bodies of the beautiful figures. The heaven vault was quiet and serene. But just a moment ago, this peaceful starry sky had experienced a calamity. Everything seemed to have passed. Everything returned to normal. And far away, on the path from the Western Paradise to the heaven vault, there was a person who was madly rushing over. Other than them, there was also a group of people rushing over from the Chaos region to the Heaven region. In addition, their speed seemed to be even faster. In the Boundless Sea region, there were still many experts here. They saw the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms retreating and they didn't even linger after exiting the Heaven Vault. It was like they were afraid of something. Not long after, everyone learned that when the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms attacked the Heaven Vault, they met with terrifying resistance. The strength of the Heaven Vault had already reached a terrifying level. After that, a supreme character comparable to the Grim Reaper appeared. He transformed into the Tao and descended from the starry space, suppressing the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms, forcing them to retreat. That expert might rush over to the Heaven Vault. Hence, the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms didn't stay in the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect and left respectively. Naturally, they also informed the Western Paradise about this. Such a heaven-defying existence could only be left for the Western Paradise to deal with. Time slowly flowed by. Finally, the group of people arrived at the entrance to the Heaven Vault of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect in the Boundless Sea region. The person in the lead had long hair that draped over his shoulders. He stared at the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect as a look of gratification flashed in his eyes. After that, he stepped into the Heaven Vault. Within the Heaven Vault, Qin Kursen seemed to have sensed something. Her silhouette flashed as she turned her gaze downwards. When the others saw Qin Kursen's actions, all of them turned their gazes over. Many of those who were cultivating stood up as they stared in that direction. Very soon, a group of figures appeared in the vision of the people in the Heaven Vault. They were currently walking towards them. The two people in the lead were a man and a woman. The man didn't exude any aura at all, but everyone could feel a transcendent aura from him. Everyone instantly recognized that this middle-aged man was none other than the supreme expert who transformed into the Tao and descended. As for that woman, she was very beautiful. Although there were many supreme beauties in the Heaven Vault, this beautiful middle-aged woman wasn't in any way inferior to them. Boom! In the air, when Luo Shenchuan saw clearly who it was, his body involuntarily trembled violently. Even though he was a heavenly deity, he still couldn't endure it. The beautiful eyes of Luo Shenlei, who was at the side, also flashed with a strange light. She seemed to be acquainted with that woman. How familiar! After that, she saw her grandfather's body trembling. In the next instant, her beautiful eyes flashed with a dazzling light. At this instant, she seemed to have understood something. That's right, other than him, who else could it be? She should have thought of this, but why didn't she dare to think about it? The beautiful eyes of Emo Qingqing and Qing are also shone with a dazzling light. Because they also saw someone they were familiar with. Uncle Black. Emo Qingqing called out in a low voice. She didn't dare to believe her eyes. She actually saw Uncle Black here. Finally, that group of figures arrived before them and stopped. Uncle Black stared at Emo Qingqing and Qing, as a kind smile appeared on his face. He then spoke to the man and woman in the lead. Master, this is Qingqing, Wentian's wife, Xing. She is also Wentian's beloved and has always been protecting Wentian as he grew up. The middle-aged man stared at Emo Qingqing and Qing. His solemn eyes suddenly flashed with a gentle smile, like a benevolent elder. He spoke in a gentle voice. Children, it has been hard on you too. Emo Qingqing and Qing stared at the middle-aged man before them. They seemed to have guessed something as their hearts pounded. They actually felt nervous, extremely nervous. Such a feeling was very strange, they had never felt it before. Chapter 1986. The beautiful woman beside the middle-aged man also had a smile on her face as she stared at them, her gaze gentle. But after that, she shifted her gaze away and called out to Luo Shenchuan, Father. As the sound of the beautiful woman's voice faded, the hearts of everyone trembled. At this moment, how could they still not understand her identity? What relationship did Luo Shenchuan have with Qin Wenin? He was Qin Wentian's grandfather, and this woman referred to Luo Shenchuan as her father. In that case, was there still a need to say more? The beautiful woman before them was none other than Qin Wentian's birth mother. As for this middle-aged man, there was no doubt that he was Qin Wentian's father. The traitor of the Qin clan whose name once shook the world, Qin Yuanfeng. Now he has returned. He borrowed the Tao from the starry space and intimidated the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms with a single sentence. Saint Lord's parents. Qi Yu's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Senior brother. Jun Mengchen called out in his heart. His senior brother's parents have returned. If his senior brother knew about this, he would surely be very happy, right? Little rascal blinked. His adorable eyes curiously stared at the people before him. Were they Wentian's parents? Luo Shenchuan's aged eyes were slightly wet. He walked over and stared at Luo Shenxianxue, his daughter. Lass, why did you leave just like that? Since you are still alive, why didn't you return after so many years? Luo Shenchuan spoke. Luo Shenxianxue sighed in her heart. How could she not want to return? But when they returned to the supreme ancient immortal realms, they had to avoid the eyes and ears of the world. If they returned to Luo Shenchuan and the Qin clan learned of this, how could they spare them? Hence, after they returned to the supreme ancient immortal realms, they directly went to the floating sea and entered the divine mausoleum's secret realm, secluded from the world. For the sake of strength, her husband Qin Yuanfeng became the tomb keeper and swore an oath before the divine mausoleum. It wasn't until now that the divine mausoleum changed that he finally came out. After so many years, how could she and Qin Yuanfeng not want to return? Father-in-law. Qin Yuanfeng called out. Luo Shenchuan stared at Qin Yuanfeng. He once hated Qin Yuanfeng, hated Qin Wentian for bringing his daughter away. But now, so many years have passed. With the appearance of Qin Wentian, the hatred in his heart had long faded away. Right now, when he saw Qin Wentian returning with his daughter, he naturally felt happy in his heart. It's good that you're back. Qin Yuanfeng, Shenxue, the two of you gave birth to a good child. Luo Shenchuan sighed. Qin Yuanfeng and Luo Shenxianxue exchanged glances as smiles appeared on their faces. They have always felt that they owed Qin Wentian. Ever since they were young, they grew up outside. Everything they understood about Qin Wentian was all from Uncle Black. As parents, they had let down their son. However, their son was still as indomitable as ever. He opened the heaven vault, established the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect, resolved the grudge between the Luotian clan and was together with his grandfather. All of these made them feel gratified. Aunt, uncle. Beside Luotian Chuan, Luotian Lei called out. This caused Luotian Qianshue's beautiful eyes to start. She stared at Luotian Lei and spoke emotionally, "You are elder brother's daughter?" "And, my name is Luotian Lei." "Good child." Luotian Qianshue's eyes turned red. She asked, "Where's your father?" "Father." Luotian Lei thought of her father and felt some sadness. She stared at a floating palace in the starry space. "Father is over there, he didn't come down. I can finally see my elder brother." Luotian Qianshue smiled. When she was young, her elder brother Luotian Yu doted on her the most, always supporting her. She wondered how her elder brother was doing. "Mhm." Qin Yuanfeng nodded. He stared at the many faces before him, feeling gratified in his heart. "Children, are you guys going to call for reinforcements as well?" Luo Shenchuan turned his gaze to Mo Qingqing and Qing as a kind smile appeared on his face. Qin Wentian's wives were all very outstanding regardless of which aspect. This was especially so for the battle earlier. Qin Wentian's wives, beauties, friends, and subordinates were all very brave. This caused him to be very moved. These people were the future of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Mo Qingqing's face was red, she was still nervous. She clenched her fists and stared at Qin Yuanfeng and Luotian Qianshue. She summoned her courage and called out, "Qingqing pays my respects to father and mother." Qing blinked. After that she also called out, "Father, mother." "Father, mother." Yi Qianyu also walked over and called out. Staring at these three beauties, their daughters-in-law, Qin Yuanfeng smiled extremely happily. Luotian Qianshue walked over and helped Mo Qingqing, Qing, and Yi Qianyu tidy their clothes. She gently spoke, "Good children, I owe you all." "Uncle, Auntie, my name is Bai Qing, I'm Wentian Gige's younger sister." Bai Qing walked over as her melodious voice rang out. This caused Qin Yuanfeng and his wife to look at her as a doting smile appeared on their faces. "Master, Bai Qing is a little girl with a bitter life. I've mentioned this to you before." Uncle Black, who was at the side, spoke. Bai Qing was acquainted with Qin Wentian back in Sky Harmony City of Chu. The two of them could be said to have grown up together and their relationship was like that of siblings. Luotian Qianshue nodded lightly. She smiled at Bai Qing. "Since you are Wentian's younger sister and the two of us are his parents, why don't you become our goddaughter? What do you think?" Bai Qing's beautiful eyes blinked as her eyes turned sour. After that, she nodded heavily and smiled radiantly, "Godfather, godmother." Luotian Qianshue smiled and patted Bai Qing's head. She really liked these maidens before her. All of them were so beautiful and their eyes were so kind. Qin Yuanfeng and his wife then turned their gazes to the others. They wanted to get to know everyone around Wentian. Right now, Wentian is still trapped in the Western Paradise. "Uncle, your cultivation base is very high. Can you enter the Western Paradise to see if he is safe or not?" At this moment, a voice rang out. The gazes of everyone turned to the person who spoke. It was none other than Princess Kitamura. Her beautiful eyes flashed with worry. Before this, they didn't dare to think about saving Wentian. But that heaven-defying character who transformed into the Tao and descended from the starry space was actually Qin Wentian's biological father. In that case, if he had enough strength, he would definitely go and save Wentian. It was precisely because they were Qin Wentian's biological parents that she would speak up. The expressions of everyone grew heavy. Clearly, they were all worried about Qin Wentian's safety. Qin Yuanfeng stared at Princess Kitamura. He could sense the worry in her eyes. Luotian Qianshue naturally could tell as well. Seems like this beautiful maiden might also like their son. That fellow was truly fortunate. Qin Yuanfeng nodded. In truth, he himself was also worried. Just when they were speaking, outside the heaven vault, in the airspace above the Qin heavenly divine sect, a raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian has actually returned. His eyes were still filled with anxiety and he didn't pause at all. Spatial light flashed as he directly soared through the air, rushing into the heaven vault. He was too fast, so fast that many experts from the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect and the Boundless Sea region didn't even have time to react. In fact, they couldn't even see clearly who this person was. Imichem? In the heaven vault, Qin Yuanfeng seemed to have sensed something. He turned his gaze over and stared downwards. After that, he saw a powerful spatial fluctuation. In the next instant, a figure flew over with great speed. When he saw them, that figure stopped in the starry space. Qin Wenyin was stunned when he saw the situation over there. Everyone was still here and they were all fine. Nothing happened to them. His worried heart finally relaxed. But very soon he saw a group of figures. Uncle Black. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. Because not only did he see Uncle Black, he also saw the two people beside Uncle Black. Although the middle-aged man was different from the one he saw before, he seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. However, it was impossible to mask the magnificence he exuded. As for that young woman, her changes were even smaller. She was still as beautiful as ever. To Qin Wenyin, she was naturally one of the most beautiful women in the world. Qin Yuanfeng and Luoshan Qianxue also stared at him. The three of them stood in the starry space, staring at each other. At this instant, time seemed to have stopped. After that, an extremely radiant smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes. He had never smiled so radiantly before. Initially, he already felt despair and rushed here with a frenzy. But when he saw Qin, Yu Huang and the others, they were all fine. Not only so, he even saw his parents whom he wanted to see even in his dreams. They were all alive and well. Also, Uncle Black was here as well. One could very well imagine how he was feeling right now. At this moment, the starry space in his eyes was truly too beautiful, so mesmerizing. After what felt like a very long time, Qin Wenyin stepped out, moving towards the beautiful starry space. He walked towards his parents, arriving before them. Qin Yuanfeng and Luoshan Qianxue also walked towards him. The three of them walked together and hugged each other. Their actions spoke louder than 1,000 words. Father, mother, your child is unfilial. I didn't manage to find the two of you. Qin Wenyin smiled. Child, mother has let you down. Luoshan Qianxue hugged Qin Wenyin. She could no longer hold back her tears as they flowed down unceasingly. Since young, they allowed Qin Wenyin to grow up alone, causing him to become an orphan. How many trials and tribulations had he gone through to reach where he was today? However, he didn't have any resentment. His smile was so radiant, and the first thing he said when they met was that his child was unfilial. From this, one could very well imagine how she, as his mother, was feeling right now. Guilt, self-blame, shame. Qin Yuanfeng's expression was as calm as ever, as steady as a mountain. He patted Qin Wentian's shoulder and spoke. The son of Qin Yuanfeng, is a man with an indomitable spirit. How is this unfilial? The three of them hugged for a long time before they separated. Qin Wenyin stared at his parents. There was no doubt that his parents must have arrived in time and saved the heaven vault. The heavens still treated him well. If something happened to the heaven vault, he would surely regret it for the rest of his life. Uncle Black. Qin Wenyin glanced at the old man beside him. He walked up and hugged Uncle Black tightly. Uncle Black, I've been waiting for this day. Uncle Black spoke with a gratified expression. He watched as Qin Wenyin grew up bit by bit. Now, Qin Wenyin has finally become someone with an indomitable spirit, someone like his father. The two of them separated. Qin Wenyin glanced at Qin and the others only to see numerous pairs of beautiful eyes staring at Qin Wenyin. Some of the beautiful eyes were already wet. Qin Wenyin has returned. He returned safely from the Western Paradise. One could very well imagine their emotions. All the calamities had ended. Chapter 1987. This was a reunion in the truest sense of the word. Qin Wentian's loved ones had all arrived. His father and daughter, Uncle Black, all of them appeared in the heaven vault. Everyone was safe. After experiencing a calamity, everything seemed to have become even more beautiful. Qin Wenyin walked towards Qing'e. He gently stroked Qing'er's hair as his gaze was filled with love and gentleness. he softly spoke, "Silly lass." Qing'e lowered her head slightly when she saw Qin Wentian's gentle gaze. She actually felt a little shy. Before this, she had once transmitted a voice transmission to Qin Wentian, saying those 3 words. At that time, it was because she felt despair in her heart and thought that she would die for sure. But now that she thought back to it, why did she feel so strange? Qing'e smiled sweetly at the side. Mo Qingqing smiled sweetly at the side. Qin Wenin gently caressed her face, feeling an incomparable gentleness in his heart. "Yu Huang." Qin Wentian called out when he saw Yu Huang evading his gaze. Princess Kitamura inclined her head and stared at Qin Wenin. Her beautiful eyes seemed to be evading his gaze, not daring to look into Qin Wentian's eyes. "I know." Qin Wentian smiled. Yu Huang's heartbeat quickened. She lowered her head slightly, not daring to look into Qin Wentian's eyes. She naturally knew that Qin Wentian was replying to her voice transmission earlier. He always knew that she liked him. The eyes of the Dark North Immortal Emperor who was beside Princess Kitamura flashed. When he saw the relationship between Qin Wentian and his daughter, he seemed to have guessed something. After that, a faint smile appeared on his face. Qin Wentian's mother, Luotian Qianxue, blinked her beautiful eyes when she saw this scene. A look of contemplation appeared on her face. She truly liked this beautiful young lady before her. When they looked at Qin Wenin, their gazes were the same as when she looked at Qin Yuanfeng. Such feelings couldn't be masked. "Cursin, quickly come over." Luotian Qianxue called out. Qin Cursin's body trembled slightly. After that she slowly walked over. She was so beautiful and her gaze was fixed on Qin Wenin. Qin Wenin seemed to sense her gaze and also stared at her. There seemed to be a strange energy that attracted the two of them. This was the kinship of blood. "Cursin, this is your elder brother." Luotian Qianxue gently spoke. Qin Cursin's hands clutched the corners of her robes. She actually felt a little nervous as well. Her red lips moved, wanting to say something but she didn't know what to say. Qin Wenin had already walked up, staring at the absolute beauty in front of him. Indeed, she had inherited the excellence of her parents. Her beauty was extraordinary. "Cursin." Qin Wentian gently called out. This was his younger sister, his blood-related younger sister. To think that he actually had a younger sister. Qin Cursin started. When she saw the gentleness in Qin Wentian's eyes, she lowered her head and called out, "Elder brother." "This girl." Luotian Qianxue walked over. She stared at her son and daughter, feeling incomparably gratified in her heart. Her family was finally reunited. "Let's go, we shouldn't stay here any longer. Let's go to the floating palace." At this moment, Luo Shenchuan walked over and spoke. Most probably, everyone had many things they wanted to say. Qin Wentian nodded. "Father, mother, let's go to my palace. I still have many things I want to tell you guys. I met my grandfather in the heaven vault." "You met your grandfather?" Qin Yuanfeng's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wentian nodded. "Let's talk as we walk. Uncle Yu, go and give the order for everyone in the divine sect to enter the heaven vault. I will temporarily close the heaven vault." Qin Wentian spoke to Qiyu. "All right." Qiyu nodded. After that he flew towards the exit of the heaven vault. Right now, those who remained in the Qin heavenly divine sect were all trusted subordinates of the divine sect and worthy of nurturing. They were all good people who were willing to live and die together with the divine sect. The group of people came to Qin Wentian's palace. They had endless things to talk about. After so many years of experiences, the emotions hidden in their hearts all needed to be poured out. They talked about Qin Tiangong's return. Luotian Qianxue met with Luotian Yu again. When she saw her elder brother who doted on her crippled, her anger towered up into the sky. This was the first time Qin Wentian felt how powerful his mother was. She had an intense killing intent. Her elder brother was actually crippled by a junior. This was especially so after they learned that that junior, the so-called Heaven's Son, was none other than the young man who entered the divine mausoleum earlier. Before this, Qin Yuanfeng allowed him to cultivate in the divine mausoleum and didn't do anything to him. But now, Qin Yuanfeng wanted to get revenge for everything, including everything the Qin clan did to Qin Yuanfeng in the past. The people of the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect all entered the Heaven Vault. The Heaven Vault was closed, isolated from the world. The people in the external world had no idea what happened inside. However, since the Heaven Vault was closed, this meant that Qin Wenyan might have returned and controlled the Heaven Vault. The Western Paradise actually failed to capture Qin Wenyan and allowed him to escape? Qin Wenyan was truly powerful, even the Western Paradise couldn't trap him. The Western Paradise also received the news and suddenly felt that something was wrong. Was that the reincarnation Buddha of their Western Paradise, or was it Qin Wenyan? After the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms received the news, they all felt extremely depressed. The Western Paradise actually failed to capture Qin Wenyan and allowed him to escape back to the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect? Now, with the addition of that mysterious expert, wouldn't the strength of the Heaven Vault be heaven-defying? Right now, even if the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms joined forces, it would be hard for them to take down the Heaven Vault. If a few more years passed, they wouldn't have a chance to do so. However, the Qin clan temporarily didn't think too much about this. Because a joyous matter welcomed the Qin clan. Heaven's son Qin Dangtian has returned. Not only did he returned even more powerful than before. The people of the Qin clan knew that after Qin Dangtian returned, he sparred with Qin Zheng and wasn't at a disadvantage. Also, according to Qin Dangtian, this was because he hadn't completely stabilized his cultivation base. If he was given more time, he would definitely be able to grow even stronger. Qin Zheng and his wife knew that Qin Dangtian came from the Divine Mausoleum and obtained the inheritance power of the Divine Mausoleum. When they thought of how powerful the Tomb Keeper was, they felt anticipation in their hearts. Would Qin Dangtian become as strong as the Tomb Keeper? He would become in existence at the peak of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. In the Qin clan, everyone was filled with joy. Back then when Qin Ding was exiled by Qin Tiangang, several heavenly deities of the Qin clan died as well. The strength of the Qin clan instantly fell by a few levels. Now that Qin Dangtian has returned, they could finally see hope for the Qin clan to recover. The good mood of the experts of the Qin clan lasted for several months. During these months, the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms were calm. The storm that erupted in the Heaven Vault seemed to have been forgotten by the people of the world. But everyone understood that things wouldn't be so simple. Qin Wenyan escaped from the Western Paradise. How could he not settle this debt? Right now, the only thing the Heaven Vault was wary of should be the Western Paradise. If not, given the current strength of the Heaven Vault, they would have already killed their way out and started their revenge. The peace of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms was finally broken by a challenge letter. This challenge letter was sent out from the Heaven Vault and finally arrived at the Qin clan. The Qin clan instantly walked out from the joyous atmosphere. They didn't forget the humiliation they suffered in the past. Once, the heaven son of the Qin clan, Qin Dangtian, married the #1 beauty of the heaven region, goddess Nikhang, and invited the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms to attend the banquet. Everyone celebrated and the glory of the Qin clan was boundless, unrivaled in the world. But what was the ending? The Qin clan suffered a great humiliation. Qin Ding was exiled, Heaven's son was defeated, and several heavenly deities died. Right now, how similar was the situation? Qin Dangtian returned after becoming stronger, and a challenge letter from Qin Wenyan once again arrived at the Qin clan. History had to be remembered. They didn't dare to be careless and had to treat this seriously. The humiliation they suffered in the past definitely wouldn't happen again. This challenge letter not only caused a commotion in the Qin clan, it also shook the entire Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms. The various hegemonic powers have been paying attention to the movements in the Heaven Vault. Was this challenge letter the start of the Heaven Vault's revenge? The gazes of everyone were focused on a single location. The ancient and powerful Qin clan of the Heaven region. At this moment, in a great hall of the Qin clan, Qin Zheng and his wife, Qin Dangtian, and a few heavenly deities of the Qin clan were all present. This time around, things might be a little troublesome. The current strength of the Heaven Vault is extremely powerful. Qin Zheng spoke. Back then when they attacked the heaven vault, they had already experienced it. Without the lips, the teeth would be cold. We have already informed the various hegemonic powers. If the heaven vault's army arrives, they wouldn't possibly stand aside and watch. If not, the next target would be them. A heavenly deity of the Qin clan spoke. Although this is the case, Wentian's current strength is also very strong. However, I'm still a little worried. Would the guardian of the divine mausoleum act? I can't help but feel uneasy. Qin Jing spoke. That guardian made him feel very uneasy. Father, don't worry. Back then when I was in the divine mausoleum, I met with the guardian a few times. I've obtained the divine mausoleum's inheritance. I believe he would give me some face. In addition, Qin Dangtian spoke. He thought of that beautiful figure. She also came here. Now that he has obtained the divine mausoleum's inheritance and became stronger, he should be qualified to pursue her. In addition, what? Qin Jing asked. The daughter of the guardian. Father should have seen her before, right? What do you think of her? Qin Dangtian asked. Outstanding talent, unrivaled in beauty. Qin Jing praised. He fought against Qin Kursin before. Although they were enemies, he was also impressed. Such a woman was extremely rare in the world. I will pursue her. I hope father doesn't mind the battle earlier. Qin Dangtian's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Goddess Nikhang had once betrayed him, causing him to feel a grudge in his heart. Now, he has already walked out of it. In addition, there were even more outstanding women waiting for him to pursue. Although it might be very difficult, now that he has the divine mausoleum's inheritance, there were no difficulties he couldn't overcome. Qin Jing praised. If Dang can successfully pursue her, how would father mind? In fact, I'm even willing to apologize to her. If such a woman could become the daughter-in-law of his Qin clan, it would definitely be a form of pride. He was only afraid that the divine mausoleum master had a very deep relationship with Qin Wenin. However, he didn't think of Qin Yuanfeng as he didn't dare to. In addition, Qin Dangtian had encountered him in the divine mausoleum. If it was Qin Yuanfeng, would Qin Dangtian be able to come out alive? Would he still be able to obtain the inheritance? But even if their relationship wasn't shallow, given how outstanding his son was, what was there to be afraid of? Time would change everything. If Qin Dangtian could pursue that woman, that tomb keeper would be a great help to their Qin clan. One couldn't help but say that Qin Zheng and Qin Dangtian's thoughts were very beautiful. However, they were destined to be disappointed. The ending was something they didn't want to see the most. Chapter 1988. The people of the world knew that a storm of blood would surely descend upon the Qin clan. Once, when Qin Wentian was weak, on the day of Qin Wentian's wedding, Qin Wentian led a group of experts here, causing a huge storm. Right now, the power Qin Wentian controlled was already incomparable to the past. Even if there was no Qiankuan sect or Nine Heavens mystical palace, just the power of the Heaven Vault alone was sufficient to contend against the hegemonic powers of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Most probably, the mere Qin clan was nothing in Qin Wentian's eyes. In addition to the grudge between the Qin clan and Qin Wentian, it was very clear that the war against the Qin clan this time around would be a decisive one. On the day of the battle, the Qin clan was in full battle formation. The experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms all arrived, but they didn't appear out in the open. They were observing in the dark, but they understood in their hearts that they were already tied together with the Qin clan. For those who participated in the battle against the Qin clan, they were all on the same side. None of them would be able to escape. Once Qin Wentian truly destroyed the Qin clan, his next target would surely be any of them. Within the Qin clan, at the peak of an ancient palace, Qin Jing stood with his hands behind his back. His divine sense spread out, enveloping the boundless space as he spoke. Everyone, since you are already here, there's no need to hide anymore. Could it be that you all think that if Qin Wentian really wants to deal with you guys, what's the point of hiding? This fellow. The experts here all cursed in their hearts. Qin Zheng was forcing them to show themselves. The Thunder Clan leader led the experts of the Thunder Clan out. The grudge between him and Qin Wenyan was extremely deep, and it was true that they wouldn't be able to avoid a battle. With someone taking the lead, the experts of the Supreme Ancient Immortal Realms all walked out. Qin Zheng, you seem very calm. The Prison God Clan leader calmly asked. My son Dang Tian has already returned. He came from the Divine Mausoleum and obtained the inheritance there. He has also met the Tomb Keeper before, and his current strength is stronger than mine. Qin Zheng calmly spoke, his words causing the hearts of everyone to tremble. Heaven's son Dang Tian was already stronger than Qin Zheng? Moreover, he came from the Divine Mausoleum and obtained the inheritance of the Divine Mausoleum. Did that mean that he had some sort of relationship with the Mausoleum Keeper? Heaven's son Qin Dang Tian. Although he was defeated in the past, he was still a supreme character. The Qin clan was truly a terrifying clan. They had a character like Qin Dang Tian and an existence like Qin Wenyan. What a pity! Originally, the Qin clan could have ascended to another height. Everyone was waiting quietly. Qin Zheng stared into the distance with his hands behind his back. Beside him, his wife was incomparably beautiful. Her purple dress fluttered in the wind, exuding a sense of nobility and coldness. Her beautiful eyes flickered with anticipation. Qin Kursin was very outstanding and could even fight against her husband Qin Zheng. If such a woman became her daughter-in-law, she would definitely be very satisfied. She believed that her son would be able to do it. Naturally, Qin Dang Tian himself also had immense self-confidence. The him now was no longer the him of the past. Heaven's son had undergone another transformation, and he already had the chance to touch upon that supreme realm. He didn't feel any fear at all. In fact, he was filled with anticipation. He was waiting for Qin Wentian's arrival. This time around, he would wash away the humiliation he suffered, using Qin Wentian's blood to wash away his shame. In the Qin clan, countless people stared up in the air, waiting. Back then, the Qin clan experienced a calamity. This time around, what would be waiting for them? Not even in their dreams would they imagine what would be waiting for them. The experts in the Qin clan were as many as the clouds. But at this moment, the atmosphere suddenly turned silent. From afar, the sound of the wind whistling could be heard. There seemed to be a surge of energy flowing over here. Gradually, a powerful pressure bore down. The wind gusted by, feeling somewhat cold. Finally, from afar, a group of figures appeared in the vision of everyone. They're here. They silently mused. At this moment, they saw a gigantic demonic beast soaring through the air and swooping down. That gigantic beast was none other than the Kuan Sovereign, the incarnation of the Kuan Sovereign. On the back of the Kuan rock, there were many silhouettes. Each of them exuded an extraordinary aura, and the person in the lead was clad in white. His long hair fluttered in the wind. Other than Qin Wenyan, who else could it be? The Tomb Keeper didn't seem to be here. Beside Qin Wenyan, there was actually that powerful mystical maiden. She came together with Qin Wenyan. This caused people to suspect that could it be that this beautiful maiden also had a relationship with Qin Wenyan? However, when Qin Wenyan stood together with her, they did seem extremely compatible. One was handsome while the other was beautiful. In addition, both of them were supreme geniuses. When Qin Dang Tian saw Qin Wenyan, great waves rose in his heart. However, his expression was as calm as ever. Clearly, he was suppressing the fluctuations in his heart. Has it finally come? All the grudges would be resolved today. Everything should come to an end now. The Kuan rock descended in the airspace above the Qin clan. Qin Wenyan stared at the experts before him. His expression was cold and calm, with no fluctuations at all. We meet again. Qin Dang Tian stared at Qin Kursin as he spoke. Qin Kursin calmly glanced at Qin Dang Tian. Cold, there were no emotions in her eyes. It was like she didn't care about him at all. Qin Dang Tian didn't mind. Her personality was like this, incomparably cold and arrogant. However, she naturally had the qualifications to do so. My name is Qin Dang Tian. In the Divine Mausoleum, I obtained the inheritance. Qin Dang Tian continued, his words causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of everyone. Looking at Qin Dongtian's attitude, it seemed like he wanted to pursue this supreme beauty. Qin Wenyan also had a strange expression on his face. Qin Dongtian was interested in Kursin? This was truly a melodramatic plot. However, Qin Dongtian most probably didn't know how ridiculous this was. Who was Qin Kursin? She was his younger sister, Qin Yuanfeng's daughter. Who was Qin Dongtian? Qin Zheng's son. Qin Kursin basically couldn't be bothered with Qin Dongtian. Hence, Qin Dongtian turned his gaze to Qin Wenyan as he calmly spoke. You are finally here. Qin Wenyan calmly glanced at Qin Dongtian. After that, he turned to Qin Zheng and his wife, as well as the people of the Qin clan. Today, I came to the Qin clan not only to resolve the grudge of the past. At the same time, I want the Qin clan to meet a few people. Qin Wenyan calmly spoke. After that, he turned around. An aged figure walked over. It was none other than the Sky Order heavenly deity, Luo Xinyu. Bringing Luo Xinyu here was the intention of his mother, Luo Xinqianxue. The Qin clan wanted blood to be repaid with blood. A loser, nothing but trash. Qin Dongtian coldly glanced at Luo Xinyu as he mocked. If that's the case, are you considered trash before me? Qin Wenyan mocked. That was in the past. Today, everything will be different. Qin Dongtian stared at Qin Wenyan, his battle intent soaring into the sky. Don't be in a hurry to fight. There are still 2 more people I want the Qin clan to meet. Qin Wenyan calmly spoke. I once said that the Qin clan will regret everything you have done. Today, everything will become reality. The Qin clan will definitely not regret this. Behind Qin Zheng, a heavenly deity coldly spoke. Do you still want to seek justice for your father? He is a traitor of the Qin clan and should have died. Why would he regret it? You are a traitor, you will also follow in the footsteps of your father. Another person spoke. Qin Wenyan stared at the ugly faces of these people as a cold smile appeared on his face. He truly wanted to see what kind of expressions they would have next. Qin Wenyan didn't say anything more. He quietly stood there as the atmosphere turned silent once more. At this moment, a beam of light cascaded down from the sky. After that, 2 figures descended from the sky, appearing not far away from Qin Wenyan. They stood there and stared at the Qin clan. When they saw these 2 clearly, Qin Zheng and his wife trembled violently as they stared fixedly at the 2 figures in the air. You are indeed still alive. Qin Zheng stared at Qin Yuanfeng. Back then when Qin Wenyan appeared, they already guessed that Qin Yuanfeng might still be alive. Now their guesses were proven true. Qin Yuanfeng has returned. Many old men of the Qin clan felt their hearts trembling when they saw the newcomer. They didn't expect that even after so many attacks, Qin Yuanfeng still failed to kill him. He actually returned alive and came to the Qin clan to seek revenge? You still dare to return? An old man from the Qin clan coldly spoke. Qin Wenyan calmly watched everything. Qin Yuanfeng didn't dare to return? It has been many years since we last met. You have changed a lot. Qin Zheng's wife smiled at Qin Yuanfeng. When she smiled, she was extremely beautiful. However, she resembled a viper or a scorpion. However, Qin Dongtian, who was beside them, felt an intense sense of unease in his heart. Father, mother, he is? Qin Dongtian's voice trembled slightly. Dang, this is your clan uncle. However, he betrayed the Qin clan. He is the traitor of the Qin clan, Qin Yuanfeng. Qin Zheng's wife spoke. At this moment, Qin Dongtian felt as though he was struck by lightning. His heart pounded violently as he stared at Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Kursin. How could this be? How could this be? The tombkeeper was actually Qin Yuanfeng. No! Qin Dongtian spoke in a low voice. His voice was trembling slightly. Upon seeing the change in Qin Dongtian, Qin Zheng and his wife frowned as a look of bewilderment appeared on their faces. Dango, what's wrong? Qin Zheng's wife asked. Why was Qin Dongtian acting so strangely? Qin Wenyan stared at Qin Zheng and his wife as he coldly spoke. Your reactions are so slow. Do you guys still not understand? When Qin Zheng and his wife heard Qin Wenyan's words, A bolt of lightning flashed through their minds. When they saw the strange expression on Qin Dongtian's face, they suddenly thought of something as their expressions drastically changed. This was especially so for Qin Zheng's wife. The smile on her face instantly turned pale. She inclined her head and stared at Qin Yuanfeng again. Several months ago, that incomparably imposing illusory figure appeared in the heaven vault. That unrivaled existence that she had to look up to, wasn't it similar to the figure before her? No, this is impossible. She spoke in a low voice as though she was consoling herself. If he really was the tomb keeper, what would the consequences be? Everything would end. Dang it. Qin Zheng turned his gaze to Qin Dangtian. Father, he is none other than the tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum. Qin Dangtian's words were like thunder from a clear sky, causing the hearts of everyone in the Qin clan to tremble. The experts from the supreme ancient immortal realms also felt their hearts pounding. Everything finally connected, everything became clear. However, the truth caused them to feel fear. The tomb keeper was Qin Yuanfeng. In that case, what was his relationship with Qin Wenyin? Father and son. Chapter 1989. Qin Yuanfeng, the tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum. Several months ago, he borrowed the Tao from the starry space and appeared in the supreme ancient immortal realms, using his Tao incarnation to force the various deities to retreat. At that moment, countless people stared at him in admiration, sighing at how powerful the tomb keeper was. Now, the tomb keeper finally appeared. However, he was none other than the traitor of the Qin clan, Qin Yuanfeng. Qin Zheng's wife stared at Qin Yuanfeng. Her heart was still pounding. She didn't dare to believe, nor was she willing to believe. When Qin Yuanfeng was young, he once loved her and treated her like a goddess. However, she completely disdained him and chose Qin Zheng. After that, she acted against Qin Yuanfeng and even killed him. Although Qin Yuanfeng proved how strong he was, his fate was still determined. She had never doubted herself before. But now, in the heaven vault, the existence she looked up to, an unreachable existence, was actually the person who once loved her and was now the enemy of the Qin clan. And the woman her son fell in love with was actually Qin Yuanfeng's daughter. What was even more terrifying was that regardless of Qin Wenyin or Qin Kursin, both of them already had the strength to fight against Qin Zheng. Qin Zheng's son and daughter were already so powerful to this extent. One could very well imagine what she was feeling right now. The people of the Qin clan were also in a daze as they stared at the figure in the air. Before this, they have already heard of how the deity-level battle in the heaven vault ended. The tomb keeper of the divine mausoleum transformed into his Tao and descended, suppressing the starry space. At that time, they only felt that the tomb keeper was an unreachable existence, a character at the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Now, the unreachable character they felt was actually a traitor of their Qin clan. Was this ridiculous? The traitor of the Qin clan reached the peak of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Just by transforming into his Tao, he wanted to expel the deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms. Was this ridiculous? When one's cultivation base reached such a level, it was no longer important if one was a traitor or not. Qin Dangtian alone was enough to contend against the entire Qin clan. He could directly establish another Qin clan. Was there any meaning to the name of a traitor? Back then, Qin Tiangang used his supreme talent to traverse through time and space to suppress the Qin clan, exiling Qin Ding. At that time, the hearts of the people of the Qin clan wavered. They wondered if everything they did to Qin Yuanfeng was right or wrong. This time, Qin Yuanfeng returned. Between him and Qin Zheng, there was no longer a need to discuss who was stronger or weaker. Time finally gave them the answer. In addition to Qin Wenyin and Qin Kursin, their family of 3 generations was extremely powerful. This originally belonged to the Qin clan, but what about now? Why did Qin Yuanfeng and Qin Wenyin lead the heavenly deity army here? How could the people of the Qin clan not understand? I, the traitor of the Qin clan, Qin Yuanfeng, have returned. Qin Yuanfeng stared at the clan before him. In his heart, There was no longer a trace of emotion. This clan had once killed him and seized everything from his body. This was extremely cruel. Was this how they treated their own clansmen? It was more like he was dealing with an irreconcilable enemy. His clan dealt with the Luoshan clan, crippling Luoshinyu. His clan hunted down his son, wanting to do the same thing they did to him, wanting to deal with his son, Qin Wenin. Such a clan, how could he still have any emotions? Even if he was a saint, it was impossible. At this moment, there was only coldness in his heart. The Qin clan owes me and my son everything. Now, how should we repay them? Qin Yuanfeng coldly spoke. He stepped out and walked forward. Below, many heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms were present. But who would dare to block him? Yuanfeng, everything that happened in the past has already passed for so many years. Why are you still unwilling to forget it? You didn't die and have grown even stronger. Your son, Qin Wenin, also has outstanding talent. Everything is so perfect. Why don't you let bygones be bygones? After all, the blood of the Qin clan flows in your veins. At this moment, an extremely experienced heavenly deity from the Qin clan spoke, trying to persuade Qin Yuanfeng to give up his hatred. Upon hearing his words, Qin Wenin and the others were all stunned. Jun Mingchen stood beside Qin Wenin and angrily berated, "Old undying thing, there's actually someone as shameless as you in this world. When you killed others, you seized their flesh and blood, even doing such a cruel thing. At that time, have you ever thought about the fact that the blood of the Qin clan flows in his veins? When you guys hunted down my senior brother, you spared no expense and used all sorts of methods. At that time, have you ever thought about the fact that the blood of the Qin clan flows in his veins? Do you still want face?" If it wasn't for Master's absolute strength, these people would most probably have the same expression on their faces. How disgusting. An old man who followed Qin Yuanfeng felt a deep sense of disgust. How shameless could this person be? Only then would he be able to say such words. Everything is in the past now? If it wasn't for the fact that they knew Qin Yuanfeng was the Tombkeeper, if the Tombkeeper didn't display such overwhelming strength, would they say that it was in the past? Most probably, they would kill Qin Yuanfeng and kill Qin Wenin. Qin Yuanfeng didn't say anything. He stepped out. "Qin Yuanfeng, what do you want to do?" Another old man asked. "Could it be that you want to destroy the Qin clan that raised you?" "The clansmen here all have the same blood as you. Do you want to kill them all? When you guys killed my father, where were my clansmen?" Qin Wenin walked out as he angrily berated. The Qin clan actually dared to do such a heartless thing. Those with a conscience most probably wouldn't have stayed behind. Was there anyone who pitied the Qin clan? In their eyes, there was only the revival of the Qin clan. Because this concerned their fate. Now, they wanted to play the sympathy card? Did they want to make his father's heart soften and spare the Qin clan? "Father, a debt of blood must be repaid with blood." Qin Wenin coldly spoke. If they were weak, it was him. If they were strong, would it be possible for them to do so? "I won't implicate the innocent, nor will I spare a single person. Back then, the Qin clan decided to kill me. This was a decision made by the heavenly deities of the Qin clan. You guys keep saying that you are doing this for the sake of the Qin clan. In that case, all of you better step out and commit suicide, paying for your sins." Qin Yuanfeng spoke. The experts of the Qin clan all felt their hearts trembling. Was it possible for the heavenly deities to commit suicide? Heavenly deities were existences at the peak of a power. If the Qin clan didn't have any heavenly deities, would it still be the Qin clan? What was the difference between them and an ordinary clan? In addition, those lofty heavenly deities had already reached the peak. Would they be willing to give up their lives? Is there no one who would step out to pay for this debt? Qin Yuanfeng stared at the experts of the Qin clan. What you guys care about is ultimately your own life and death. What a joke. Qin Zheng. Qin Yuanfeng lowered his head, staring at Qin Zheng in disdain. Qin Zheng's expression turned ashen. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Yuanfeng. This was once his clan brother. Right now, Qin Yuanfeng's cultivation base had already far surpassed his. This feeling was extremely helpless. Back then, how did I treat you? How did you treat me back then? Now, as the Qin clan leader, you even mobilized the Qin clan's heavenly deities to hunt down my son Wenyan. Now that we, father and son, are here, it's time for you to step out. Qin Yuanfeng spoke, wanting Qin Zheng to step out. However, did Qin Zheng dare to do so? What was the use of him stepping out? Could he deal with Qin Yuanfeng? He couldn't even suppress Qin Yuanfeng's daughter, Qin Kursin. He only had a slight advantage, and he had to rely on the judgment halberd. Everyone, if the Qin clan is destroyed, which of the hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms would be able to escape? Qin Zheng spoke, wanting to mobilize the experts of the supreme ancient immortal realms to join the battle. It was basically impossible for the Qin clan to deal with the Qin clan alone. Today, the grudge between me, Qin Yuanfeng, and the Qin clan shall be settled. Since you all are here, just take a look. If anyone dares to interfere, I will kill them. Qin Yuanfeng's calm voice contained an incomparably tyrannical aura. Whoever dares to interfere, he would kill them. Today, this was a matter between him and the Qin clan. This debt would be repaid today. Qin Zheng, act like a man. Qin Yuanfeng stood in the air, waiting for Qin Zheng. Today, there was no way for Qin Zheng to avoid this battle. Even if he didn't want to fight, he had to fight. Qin Zheng slowly soared up into the air. His wife stared at him, a look of sorrow could be seen in her eyes. In the heaven vault, Qin Yuanfeng transformed into his Tao and appeared. At that time, the strength he displayed already made everyone understand that Qin Zheng was definitely not a match for him. He might even be suppressed. Let's kill them together. Qin Dangtian spoke. A fearsome divine might radiated from him. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan flashed as they stepped out at the same time. They had no choice. Qin Yuanfeng wouldn't spare any of the heavenly deities of the Qin clan. Today, even if they didn't want to fight, they had to fight. Qin Wendian stepped out when he saw this scene. The heavenly deities behind him also stepped out. Competing in numbers? The heavenly deities of the Qin heavenly divine sect might have a certain disparity when compared to the hegemonic powers in the supreme ancient immortal realms, but they would definitely be able to suppress any power. The Qin clan was no exception. Back then, the heavenly deities of the Qin clan ganged up on me to kill me. Now, things are the same as back then. Wenyan, help your father to hold the line. Qin Yuanfeng spoke. He stepped out and entered the Qin clan, standing in the middle of the heavenly deities of the Qin clan. Today was so similar to the past. But the him now was no longer the him of the past. Qin Wendian nodded. He waved his hand and the heavenly deities scattered, surrounding the entire Qin clan. Not even a single drop of water could leak out. Everything they did to his father in the past, they would all be repaid today. Not a single one of them was allowed to leave. Chapter 1990. Qin Yuanfeng stood in the center of the heavenly deities, calm and composed. He was like a supreme god-king, peering down at the heavenly deities. Qin Zheng stared at this clan brother who grew up together with him. This clan brother of his who was ostracized by him yet had outstanding talent. His eyes flashed with an intense killing intent. However, he knew that the cultivation base of this clan brother of his was already higher than him. He stood there like an undefeatable god-king. Make your move. Qin Yuanfeng calmly spoke as he stared at this familiar scene. As the sound of his voice faded, a divine punishment formation appeared in the air, instantly locking down the area. The projection landed on Qin Yuanfeng as the power of divine punishment blasted towards Qin Yuanfeng. The projection of the divine formation on Qin Yuanfeng was so powerful that the light of destruction was so blinding that it hurt the eyes of those who saw it. Around Qin Yuanfeng, a towering devil might gushed forth, suppressing the heavens and earth. Around him, 6 beams of light flashed, transforming into 6 vortexes. His voice was like a supreme devil god. No one would be able to destroy him. When the divine punishment light blasted down one of the 6 vortexes, the devouring vortex opened its mouth and directly devoured it, causing the attack to dissipate into nothingness. Force of the Six Paths. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan felt their hearts trembling. Qin Yuanfeng had cultivated the force of the Six Paths. Who would be able to do anything to him? Also, these six paths were the Daos he comprehended himself. Hence, this force of the six paths could be said to be something he created himself. How heaven-defying was this? Kill! The heavenly deities felt fear in their hearts. They had no choice but to act. Qin Yuanfeng and his son came here to collect their debt. Qin Yuanfeng fought against the heavenly deities of the Qin clan while Qin Wenyan led the army of deities from the Qin heavenly divine sect to suppress them. There was no place for them to flee. Only by fighting would they have a chance of survival. All sorts of Dao arts blasted into Qin Yuanfeng. The six vortexes around him grew even more terrifying as they extended out from his feet. There were 6 petals on the flower and each petal was a Dao. These 6 petals gleamed with a strange blackness, dark and terrifying, like the flower of death. These 6 petals revolved around Qin Yuanfeng's body. All sorts of Dao arts and innate techniques blasted into it, yet they were unable to do anything to it. Such defensive power caused the heavenly deities of the Qin clan to feel despair. It also caused the heavenly deities of the supreme ancient immortal realms to feel an intense pressure. They were thinking, what should they do? After Qin Yuanfeng dealt with the Qin clan, would he deal with them? It was true that they had no grudge with Qin Yuanfeng, but they had participated in the assassination of Qin Wendian many times. Would Qin Yuanfeng spare them? At this moment, many powers felt regret. The Western Paradise actually didn't appear at this moment. They were the only power that could stop Qin Yuanfeng, but they still didn't show up. This showed that they had ulterior motives. As expected, there were no powers that could be trusted. Staring at the pitch-black petals around Qin Yuanfeng, as well as his supreme figure, all of them had a feeling that the Qin clan was finished. How foolish was the Qin clan? Such an expert was actually chased out of the clan and even killed by them. However, Qin Wenyan actually managed to survive. Such a weak and small Qin clan, yet you want to kill your own clansmen and chase after my son? How lamentable! Qin Yuanfeng sighed, causing the heavenly deities of the Qin clan to feel extremely humiliated. They were humiliated, they were so weak. The 6 petals bloomed ferociously, extending up into the sky. They transformed into the boundless 6 paths of hell, enveloping the entire sky. As they expanded, they unceasingly tore apart the Dao energy of the Qin clan's experts, causing the Qin clan's heavenly deities to retreat unceasingly as a sense of helplessness appeared in their hearts. Qin Yuanfeng's strength had already far surpassed them. At this moment, Qin Yuanfeng stretched his hand out. In an instant, one of the 6 petals unleashed a terrifying devouring vortex that shot towards a heavenly deity. The devouring vortex grew larger and larger, engulfing everything. That Qin clan's heavenly deity violently retreated. However, the entire sky seemed to be about to be devoured by the black petals. There was no way for him to escape. Qin Yuanfeng, you dare to kill your elders? How disgraceful! That heavenly deity howled in rage. Qin Yuanfeng's expression was cold, he didn't waver at all. Kill his elders? Are you guys even worthy? Qin Yuanfeng calmly spoke. How would he show any mercy? The black petals directly devoured that heavenly deity. A miserable scream rang out, reverberating through the vast space of the Qin clan. Everyone in the Qin clan felt their hearts trembling. Regardless of the heavenly deities in combat or the people of the Qin clan, they were all experts. The heavenly deities of the Qin clan couldn't even withstand a single strike from this so-called traitor of the Qin clan. They were all killed in a domineering manner. All of them felt despair. Who among them could deal with Qin Yuanfeng? Vile beast! A heavenly deity roared, unleashing boundless Dao energy towards the black petals. However, the black petals before him shone with the light of samsara, directly engulfing his Dao energy. After that, his body was engulfed as well, being sucked into the samsara petals, entering the endless cycle of samsara. Below, Qin Dangtian let out a low-sounding roar. Divine might towered up into the sky, wanting to soar into the air. However, a hand held him back. Qin Dangun turned his head, his hands gleamed with a bloodthirsty light as he stared at his mother. Dangu, just flee. Qin Dongtian's mother transmitted her voice to him. Your talent is outstanding, you are the only one who has a chance to defeat him. Just flee and come back for revenge in the future. She could also sense that in this place, there was no one who could defeat Qin Yuanfeng. Even Qin Dangtian, who obtained the inheritance from the Divine Mausoleum, wouldn't be able to do so. After all, he hasn't cultivated for long. Even if he obtained the inheritance, he wouldn't be able to instantly surpass himself by too much. He sparred with Qin Jing before and was already no weaker than his father Qin Jing. But if he wanted to do what Qin Yuanfeng did, it was basically impossible for him to ignore Qin Yuanfeng. If Qin Dangtian participated in the battle, the ending wouldn't be any different. He wouldn't be able to affect the overall situation. Hence, she hoped that her only son would be able to flee. Mother! Qin Dongtian's eyes flashed with blood. He was filled with reluctance. Why did things turn out like this? He obtained the inheritance from the Divine Mausoleum and returned in high spirits. He was much stronger than before. He initially thought that he would be able to wash away the humiliation he suffered and chase after the beauty. But what was the truth? What awaited him was actually an even greater calamity. Right now, he could only flee, dragging out an ignoble existence. His father and the other heavenly deities of the Qin clan actually had to fight. Also, this was a battle that they couldn't win. In fact, it could be said that they were courting death. Boom! A thunderous boom rang out. Another heavenly deity of the Qin clan was killed. His body slammed into a majestic building of the Qin clan, causing the building to collapse. The people of the Qin clan glanced over. What they saw wasn't just the collapse of a building, it was more like the collapse of the entire Qin clan. If it could be said that Qin Tiangong's earlier return to vent his anger was to take revenge against the Qin clan, then this time around, Qin Yuanfeng's return might be to annihilate the Qin clan. Inclining their heads and staring at that god-king-like supreme expert, the people of the Qin clan truly felt regret. Intense regret appeared in their hearts. Such a powerful existence, an invincible character, he was originally someone from the Qin clan. Why did the Qin clan chase him away step by step and even wanted to kill him? Originally, this supreme expert should have led the Qin clan to contend for supremacy in the supreme ancient immortal realms. Other than him, his children, Qin Wendian and Qin Kursin, were both so outstanding and so powerful. But now, they actually became the enemies of the Qin clan. Who was at fault for all of this? Who was the one who made the decision back then? It was Qin Ding and Qin Zheng. But now, Qin Ding was exiled and Qin Zheng himself wasn't a match for Qin Yuanfeng. How ironic was this? Maybe it was really like what Qin Wendian said back then. Qin Ding and Qin Zheng were jealous of Qin Yuanfeng's strength. Qin Ding and Qin Zheng were inferior to Qin Yuanfeng. This was why they rejected him. In fact, they even forced him into a dead end and slaughtered his way into the Qin clan. If not, why would Qin Yuanfeng still slaughter his way into the Qin clan back then despite knowing that he would die for sure? But now, everything was already destined. What else could they do? If time could flow in reverse, they would definitely not allow all of this to happen. But in this world, there were no ifs. Arg! Another scream of misery rang out. Another heavenly deity from the Qin clan was killed on the spot. The petals of darkness directly tore his body apart. Qin Yuanfeng didn't show any mercy at all. He has experienced so much and has long since forgotten the meaning of mercy. If the Qin clan showed him a little bit of mercy back then, if they showed him a little bit of mercy, he might have wavered. But the Qin clan didn't. After he was killed, the Qin clan crippled Luo Xinyu. After his son appeared, he was hunted down by the Qin clan. Now, what else could he do? He could only repay blood with blood. Stop killing. An expert from the Qin clan roared at the air. He prostrated himself on the ground as a look of agony appeared on his face. If this continued, all the heavenly deities of the Qin clan would be wiped out. At that time, would the Qin clan still be the Qin clan? Even if Qin Yuanfeng spared the Qin clan, there would only be a single fate for the Qin clan. Destruction, becoming the dust of history. Qin Yuanfeng, the blood of the Qin clan also flows in your veins. Don't be so ruthless. More and more people from the Qin clan spoke, begging for mercy. They wanted Qin Yuanfeng to show mercy. If this continued, the Qin clan would truly be finished. Qin Wendian stared at the faces of these people. There was no sympathy in his heart at all. He coldly spoke. Back then when the Qin clan killed my father and hunted me down, was there a single person who stood out to speak for my father and me? You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.